Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding. For the worshipful Mayor of Oldham, Councillor Atikul Rahman.
Please remain standing while I call on my Imam Wasik to say the prayers.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, the God of Abraham, the God of Moses, the God of Jesus, and the God of Muhammad. This is a special tribute in these few moments to an individual who is well known not only in this circle, but to all the people of Oldham. Someone who dedicated over 4 decades of his life in service to the people of Oldham and Britain with sincere concern, selflessness and passion. The contributions and services of Michael Meacher are too numerous to mention. Apart from his dedication to justice and positive progression, there are endless stories and comments on how he changed the lives of individuals. His character as a human being is what touched most of these people. I'd like to just mention one quote of Michael Meacher. Representing Oldham in Parliament is undoubtedly the greatest privilege of my life. I think it's also interesting to note that today is also the birthday of Michael Meacher as well. And as we honor his legacy, we ask God to also bring into existence individuals like him who will strive assiduously for a better world. Our sincere condolences go out to his family and his friends. Let us also pray for the unfortunate victims who are being oppressed around the world continuously. Let us pray for the victims of the recent earthquake in South Asia and also the plane crash, which has been mentioned frequently. We beseech God. We beseech God to shower His mercy upon us, to forgive us, and grant each of us the courage to rectify our own hearts and serve His creation with altruistic sincerity. May God guide and bless this council. May He bless this town and this country with continuous guidance and infinite blessings. May He unite all of our hearts in those things we hold sacred and true. As deep down, each one of us, we all want the same things, and we ask God to help us to help each other in realizing them with love, not hatred.
Please be seated. If members wish to remove their jackets, they may do so. May I also remind members and members of the public that the meeting will be streamed live on a webcast from Council's website. The first item is Open Council. It is public question time. Questions have been received for Cabinet members from members of the public, and the questions will be taken in order received. The first question has been submitted by Leonie Kirkbride via email. I wanted to ask a question about the new roads and swimming baths. Why does the water have to be so cold and sitting on the side be so hot that we are sweating? I find Chanson baths just right. The water is not that cold. Kids in the swimming lesson yesterday took longer to get into the pool because it was freezing. I was told it's the right temperature. Why so cold? Is there anything you can do about it? Also, can I mention again about Roman Road? The parking is horrible. People with trams cannot get past, so they go on in the road. Kids coming from school have to walk in the road. Do you want an accident? Why don't we put double yellow lines in the bit where you have to walk in the road? That would make it safer. I call on Councillor Brownridge to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm afraid this is going to be part of the technical answer. So it says that all the main pools are set at 27 to 29 degrees Celsius, with Lerner pools being at 30 to 32 degrees. Brighton's main pool was consistently between 28.5 and 29 degrees, purposely set at the higher range so that it doesn't feel cold. There shouldn't be any difference between Brighton and Chatterton. The Lerner pool has always been around 31 degrees. Poolside air temperature should be 1 degree above the pool water, and Brighton's is consistently around 30 degrees. Councillor Hibbert will ask the party now answer the whole background road.
Thank you. Can I thank Leonard Kirkby for the question? London Road has already had some weighting restrictions in place and dedicated mandatory school keep clear markings. There's a lay-by near the school which some parents used to drop children off. Parking around schools and at school time peaks causes problems across the borough. It's not effective to implement weighting restrictions for this type of situation, which occurs over a relatively short period of time, as the drivers are with the vehicles, enabling them to move off if enforcement were carried out. However, Mr. Mayor, I have asked for an increased presence by the school safety vehicle to try to encourage appropriate parking behaviour in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert and Councillor Brownridge. The next question has been submitted by Awan Farand via email. I would like to ask if the road closure arrangements for Shaw Market are permanently in place, or if they are just a trial. My reason for asking is because of the absolute traffic chaos I experienced on Thursday last week. A journey which should have taken me only 10 minutes there and back took more than 3/4 of an hour, resulting in my having to run around doing my urgent shopping at breakneck speed so I was not late to collect my daughter from school. The roads around the town centre were absolute gridlock. No one could move anywhere. Buses have to negotiate roads not designed for through traffic. Cars unable to turn out of side streets, blocking the roads, with others unable to turn in even to get into car parks. Queues and queues of standing traffic inching its way round back streets. Whilst I was sat in standing traffic, I could clearly see that the market was devoid of shoppers, as was Asda when I finally got there. Their car park virtually empty. I'm hoping that this is only a trial and that someone will realise that moving the market is actually counterproductive, reducing the number of shoppers in the show rather than increasing them. I will be avoiding show in a Thursday in future. I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and can I thank Mr. Ram for the question. A 10-week trial to test out how Shaw Market and local businesses perform with the market was held on Market Street. During the trial, the highways officers monitored traffic both on Thursdays and also on the other days of the week to ensure the council had full comparisons. The trial was considered to be successful, and Shaw Market was granted a permanent licence to be held on Market Street by a licensing panel on the 2nd of November. The council, Mr. Mayor, is not aware of any specific traffic-related issues on the afternoon of the 22nd of October. However, highways officers have made full assessments of the suitability of the diversions for buses and large delivery vehicles and are satisfied that temporary diversions in place on Market Day are safe and enable traffic to flow. Monitoring of traffic has taken place both before and during the trial period, including monitoring of the traffic queues on the Eastway when pedestrian crossings are in use. There were no unacceptable traffic flow issues noted during the monitoring. There has been regular consultation with the bus companies, the local mail order companies, the emergency services and the larger supermarkets. There have been no negative reports from any of these organisations. Our evidence shows that the market is very well used with a significant rise in footfall, and our consultation with the local businesses, and local residents indicate that there is a majority in favour of the on-street market. But I say at this point, Mr Mayor, that we will be keeping an eye on the situation, and I'm confident that the local ward councillors will keep me fully informed of any problems that occur, as they always do. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. The next question has been submitted by Bradley Hardacre via email. The report that was presented to the licensing panel on Monday last, 2nd of November, about the Shaw on-street market trial contains some comments from real concern from local traders affected adversely by the new arrangements. These comments relate to takings being significantly down. One of the lowest trading days, and worse still, a disaster. The takings so bad they did not even cover the pay for one wage. Problem with deliveries. The closure of Market Street will not allow me to load and unload items of my business, which I need access to at all times. And traffic disruption. The extra traffic on Eastway is causing inconvenience, and the ambulance could not get near where it was needed. Given that these comments came from some of the more well-established businesses on Market Street, I would like to ask the Cabinet member under whose remit responsibility for markets lies, whether they share my concern that the continuation of an on-street market could in the long term affect the viability of these businesses, and what this administration intends to do to address these issues. I call on Councillor Moores to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sure, Councillor has already addressed some of the issues raised, but I'll carry on now. On the 2nd of November, the licensing panel considered a full report which detailed feedback from local businesses, members of the public and market traders regarding the request to give Shaw Market a permanent licence to operate on Market Street. While there were a number of local people and local businesses who did not agree with relocating the market to Market Street, for greater evidence from the formal consultation with local businesses on Market Street and the open public consultation with residents suggested that there was a clear majority in favour of the move. Many local businesses commented that their trade had increased and were supportive of the move. Almost 60% of local people preferred the on-street location, and 68% said that they thought the new location could have a positive impact. There has been a marked increase in footfall, which is reflected in the feedback from market traders who all report a major rise in their takings. A Friday market encourages more footfall, which will help other Market Street businesses to thrive. The purpose of moving the market on the street was to encourage new customers who use the supermarkets to come into the heart of the district centre for the first time. We have a waiting list of new market traders keen to trade in Shaw. We will have a wider variety of stalls which will encourage even more new customers and also give the existing loyal customers a much better market than they have had for the last 5 years. I understand that the move has meant that local businesses themselves have had to make adjustments. Many local businesses have been able to make alternative arrangements for their deliveries. Some businesses are accessible from the rear of their premises, and some businesses have changed their delivery arrangements by changing the date or time of their deliveries. There has been formal monitoring of the changes in traffic flow, and so far there has been no evidence of any unacceptable traffic disruption. The Council has been in regular contact throughout the 10-week trial with the bus companies, the local mail order companies, the major supermarkets and the emergency services. None have reported any issues. On one occasion when an ambulance was called, it was fully able to get to the patient who was sitting near the Iceland store. The market staff waited at the barriers and moved them as soon as the ambulance arrived, and the North West Ambulance Service have not reported that access or egress was a problem. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moores. The next question has been submitted by Mark Brooks via email. Oldham Council will be funding the works associated with the highways and access requirements for the proposed new Saddlewood School in Diggle. Would the Council therefore please state the current total cost estimate for all the highway and infrastructure improvements necessary in relation to the Saddleworth School project? I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and can I thank Mr. Brooks for his question. The Council has been designing a highway scheme associated with a proposed Saddleworth School development in Diggle for some time now. I'm working quite closely, I have to say, and positive with the local ward councillors. Unfortunately, there are two reasons why I'm not currently able to disclose the estimated cost of the scheme. Firstly, some elements of the scheme will require planning consent to go ahead and will be subject to statutory consultation with the public and statutory consultees. The scheme, Mr. Mayor, may therefore change and this may increase or decrease the estimated cost. Secondly, the Council would not disclose the estimated cost of the scheme prior to going out to tender for the works, because this will let contractors know how much to charge and may prevent the Council from achieving best value for the contracts and best value for the Council taxpayers of Oldham. The cost of the highway scheme will be disclosed in the future once any tendering process has been completed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. The next question has been submitted by Metro Meerkat via Twitter. Why did Council let MCRM Metrolink at official TFGM downgrade service to single peak trams with ridiculous overcrowding? I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I thank Metro Meerkat for his or her or its question? The Metrolink tram system is managed by Transport for Greater Manchester, and there's a need to manage competing demand across a very complex network. However, recent discussions have led to a proposal to increase the frequency of the service in the near future, which should relieve any pressure at peak times. Much information has been published and made public in newspapers, etc., and on the TFGM website about the plans for the improvements of the service in December. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. The next question has been submitted by Hater Marcus via Twitter. Can we get a resident-only car park marked out because the parking standard is appalling? 11 cars fit, but only room for 7. It is the residents-only car park at Britannia Avenue Shore. I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I thank Home Hater Marcus for his question? The Britannia Avenue residents parking area has been introduced as a zone scheme, which means that bays are not marked on the street. It's the responsibility of the permit holders to park responsibly in the zone area. A traditional residence parking scheme with the provision of marked bays was considered at the time the scheme was being designed. Well, this type of scheme would have also required the introduction of yellow lines to be introduced in areas considered not suitable for parking, which would have reduced the space available for permit holders. When this was initially discussed with residents through the consultation process, the consensus of opinion was for a zone scheme to be introduced. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. The next question has been submitted by Alison Hume Weekly via Facebook. Are there any plans on installing much needed CCTV on Ashton Road? I call on Councillor Brownridge to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have invested in CCTV in the past across the borough, but there are currently no plans for further investment due to the cost associated with the installation and upkeep.
Time for one more question. The next question has been submitted by Joe Fitzpatrick. I call on Mr. Fitzpatrick to ask his question.
Some time ago you announced that £4 million of inducements were offered to mono pumps to get them to move their operation from Tameside into Oldham. Could you tell me when they will be moving into Oldham?
I call on Councillor McMahon to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. They are there and they've been there since September 2014.
Thank you. That's the end of public question time. We move on to councillors' questions on ward or district matters. Questions have been received for cabinet members from council councillors on ward and district matters. The council has agreed to consider the questions on a politically balanced basis. I call on Councillor Fieldley to ask a question as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The car park at Failsworth District Centre is widely regarded by many people in Failsworth as poor quality. While some work has already been undertaken to create safer routes for pedestrians, there remain a number of other items of poor finish that would be relatively simple and quick to put right, including poor quality and misleading signage, faded road markings, bent or damaged street furniture and an unpaved footpath leading to the canal. Will the relevant cabinet member agree to address these issues with officers and, if necessary, arrange a site meeting to come and view some of the outstanding problems? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor McMahon to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thank Councillor Fielding for raising this very important question. As a resident of Failsworth and a local shopper, I fully understand just how hazardous that car park is. I know that our councillors have been working very hard with Brook Council and with Tesco to try and make the car park safer. If people don't know, if you're a pedestrian trying to get from Tesco to the health centre, you have to navigate a car park through traffic and really, really poor signage and white lining works. My suggestion is I hand this to Councillor Laws for him to take up with officers any covers the operational issues around the district centres. And we'll get meetings together with Brook House with Tesco and try and bring some resolution to this.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. I call on Councillor Steve Bashford to ask a question as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In my ward, I'm sure as many others, we have a number of housing estates where the law was never adopted for various reasons. There's one particular street where street lamps have been installed, and residents have recently paid to have some new lamps fitted by themselves. Just wondering if the relevant cabinet member could work with me or let me know if, as these people are paying council tax, which includes an element of street lighting, that we could ask the authority and or EO to replace these lamps on a regular basis and set the timers on these lamps so they actually come on at the correct times. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Bashford for this question? I understand the concerns raised and ask that officers to give priority to following up on adoption of both highways and street lighting on new developments. However, there are significant financial implications to the council adopting street lamps at risk, including not least the costs of the remedial work to bring the lighting up to the required standard. We're therefore committed to ensuring that developers don't leave residents in this difficult position, and going forward we'll take whatever action is deemed necessary to resolve the issue. I can speak with, and my fellow ward councillors can speak from personal experience, Councillor Bashford, on the adoption of a road that took us nearly 10 years to resolve. And of course I always gave a full commitment and promise to work with ward councillors, whichever ward and whichever political party it belongs to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. I call on Councillor Gary to ask a question as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I recently had the misfortune to travel shortly after 5 o'clock on the Manchester to Rochdale tram. To say the journey to Failsworth was unpleasant, overcrowded and dangerous is an understatement. Far too many people were crushed beside the carriage in a bid to get home from work. Unbelievably, even more people got on the console, which left many of us with nothing to hold on to for safety should the tram have to stop suddenly. If any of the passengers on board would have fainted, had an epileptic fit or a diabetic hypo, then mayhem would have ensued, as they could not have been placed in a recovery position. Surely, for health and safety reasons, someone should be monitoring the mental people who are on the tram at any one time. Sorry, we're on the tram at any one time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Gary for the question? Metrolink is extremely popular, extremely busy at peak times, and the system is managed by Transport for Greater Manchester, as we all know. They recognise that many parts of the Metrolink system would benefit from additional capacity and constantly looking at ways to increase that capacity on the network, particularly at peak times. The tram fleet is set to grow to 120 strong, which will provide the opportunity to increase capacity and frequency, as I've referred to earlier, on the most popular services. And we would argue that our line is one of the most popular. More trams will be running between Shore and Crompton and the city centre from December. By December, we can't give an exact date, but it'll definitely be before the Christmas rush, or the very early stages of the Christmas peak shopping time. In the case of an emergency, the driver would stop at the next stop and an ambulance would be called if necessary. But I do recognise the potential for problems that Councillor Gary raises when you're on the tram there and it's literally everybody's looking at everybody else's armpit, and it's not a very pleasant experience. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. I call on Councillor Harkness to ask a question as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, the Cabinet member will be aware that I and my fellow Liberal Democrats are fully committed to providing a new secondary school for the children of Saddleworth, despite attempts by some to delay and delay to the point that they will no longer get a new secondary school. Recently, a new consultation process has begun relating to planning and environmental factors. I fully support the principle of public consultation. However, I am concerned that yet another delay, which in part repeats what has already taken place, means that the project is around 18 months behind schedule, whilst the fabric of the current building continues to deteriorate. My concern is that there are many schools in the northwest waiting with bids and are happy to jump in with a late bid and take up the offer of a new secondary school. The nightmare scenario, which we do not want, is a situation in which there is no secondary school in Saddleworth in a few years' time, and local children are being dispersed by bus to schools, places around the borough. Children in Saddleworth would have to travel all around the borough for a new school, for a school when the current site inevitably closes. So can I please ask for assurances that the Cabinet remains fully committed to the building of a new secondary school in Saddleworth at the earliest possible time, and that it will fight tooth and nail to ensure that the funding does not get pulled. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkness. I call on Councillor Akhtar to respond.
Councillor Harkness, thank you for the good question. As you're aware, the Council is equally committed to ensuring that we have a brand new Saddleworth school that provides a modern environment enabling supports quality teaching. The new Saddleworth school is well beyond the bidding stage and is included in the Education Funding Authority's approved Priority Schools building programme. And all partners have invested a great deal of time and effort in getting to this stage. Whilst it has taken a long time to develop the project, it is important to note that the Council now has to play its part as a local planning authority, and that this is a legal process which needs to be carried out in a robust way. The additional public consultation which has been announced will go over some old ground, but residents will now be better informed by a single environmental statement which covers all 4 planning applications, including the highways works, which have not yet been the subject of public consultation. We are working closely with the Education Funding Authority to ensure that they are fully and regularly briefed on the reasons for and the progress of the additional planning process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I call on Councillor Kumar to ask a question as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What's Fruit Street at this point outside the shops, where it's turning to the one name needs urgent repairs? This has been reported and I have been told that paving bits have been ordered. Can you please tell me and the residents of St Mary's when the work will be carried out?
Thank you, Councillor Kumar. I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kumar. The information that I've been given is that the area in question has been made safe. So although at this point it might not be aesthetically pleasing, the area is safe, which is the main thing. Engineers are considering the design issues with the blocks and future maintenance. Improvement of the area will be carried out when appropriate funding becomes available. However, following a conversation with Councillor Kumar earlier on, I will make further investigations and seek further information and keep you fully informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. I call on Councillor Price to ask a question as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I ask the Cabinet member to give me an update on the proposed development of the former County Health School site, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. I call on Councillor McMahon to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The developer is due to be appointed in the new year. We're hoping that work will start on site in September of next year. The anticipation is that between 80 and 90 units built on that site, with an estimated completion for May 2017.
Thank you, Councillor Uthman. I call on Councillor Ahmad to ask a question as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a question about the state of the building at Clarksville School. Clarksville School is in a great deal of replacing, as it is in very poor condition, and fails to give pupils and the staff a suitable environment to work in. We regret the government rejected the funding request last year to replace it. Could the cabinet member please advise us of any progress that has been made on this matter today?
Thank you, Councillor Ahmad. I call on Councillor Akhtar to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The condition of elements of electrical services and remedial repairs to the roof of brickwork pointing had been included in the 2015 and 16 Council's backlog maintenance programme for consideration. Just after the meeting to agree the backlog maintenance programme, we put a school forward to the Education Funding Agency to seek funding for a replacement school. But unfortunately, as you mentioned, Councillor, the bid was unsuccessful. The condition of Clarksville School Primary School has and continues to be raised as part of the discussion with regard to future capital work strategies. But until the Council can reconcile the difficult budget position, at this stage we're unable, at this moment in time, to decide on what future course of action to take.
Thank you, Councillor Akhtar. I call on Councillor Williamson to ask a question as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After months of speculation and denials from North West Ambulance Service, my ward colleague, Councillor Dave Murphy, has finally received confirmation that Compton Ambulance Station is closed and has been since the summer. I understand one of the reasons for the closure was because there have been a number of targeted acts of vandalism and crime. Obviously, North West Ambulance Service needs to look after their staff, and I support that. North West Ambulance are looking at possibly relocating to the Royal Oldham Hospital. My concern is that this will add another 3 minutes or so onto the response time for those needing an ambulance living in and around the Shore and Compton side of the borough, putting more lives at risk. The letter received states that we will inform the stakeholders such as yourself as to what the final outcome will be. Therefore, can the relevant cabinet member please put pressure on North West Ambulance to keep to their commitment and ask them to reconsider the closure of Compton Ambulance Station? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Stretton to respond, please.
Thank Councillor Williamson for her question. Obviously this is not a service that's within the control of the Council, but we have sought clarification because clearly it affects all the residents. We've been advised that no decision has yet been taken on the future of Compton Ambulance Station. North West Ambulance Service Trust launched a trust-wide comprehensive estate review in 2012, and the remit of the review was to assess whether each site within their estate portfolio was viable in terms of operational matters and financially, and also whether a refurbishment was required. The Compton Station, as you said, has been the victim of vandalism, and the decision was taken by North West Ambulance Service to temporarily relocate the service from Compton Station to the Oldham Ambulance Station. The move was brought about by concerns for staff safety following a number of targeted acts of vandalism and crime, although there is now reason to believe that these concerns have been alleviated due to a recent conviction. There has been no negative impact on the service to Oldham residents from North West Ambulance Service since its temporary relocation began. Whilst the Compton site was vacant, North West Ambulance Service decided to begin the review process of the Compton site. When a decision is made, the decision and the reasons for it will be communicated to the local MP, the Oldham Health and Wellbeing Board and Oldham Health Watch. We are advised that there has been no public consultation on the matter, as there has been no withdrawal of the service. People in Oldham will still receive an ambulance when they call for one, no matter the outcome of the review. Officers from North West Ambulance Services offered to meet with council representatives to discuss the review and possible outcomes for the Compton site, as well as any other Oldham sites. And both organisations will provide mutual support and jointly plan any future communications where possible. I'll ask officers to make sure that a representative of the Shore Ward and a representative of the Crompton Ward are involved in any such meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. If you could switch your mic on, please. I call on Councillor McLaren to ask a question as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Residents on Denton Lane and adjoining streets have expressed some concern about the general condition of the carriageway on Denton Lane. Is it possible to provide any information regarding the future maintenance of Denton Lane and whether there might be any possibility of the carriageway being resurfaced in the future? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor McLaren. A highways engineer undertook a detailed ward visual inspection on the 25th of September this year to ascertain the general condition of the carriageway along Denton Lane. Any repairs deemed necessary will continue to be logged, however. The standard of the carriageway means that it is not currently included in our resurfacing programme. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. I call on Councillor Ali to ask a question as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The issue I would like to put to Council is in relation to road safety in the Cheltenham North Ward. I am concerned that the junction of Garforth Street and Middleton Road is increasingly difficult to negotiate when travelling by car. It poses a risk both to commuters and pedestrians. I was wondering if the relevant Cabinet member can advise if there is any possibility of measures being taken to improve road safety for all users. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ali. I know this particular junction exceptionally well, having to drive past it and through it every time I come to and from the Civic Centre. And I know that there are great difficulties there, and I've discussed it with officers. So I'm pleased to inform Councillor Ali that a scheme has been proposed and will be considered within the available funding. The proposal under consideration is to install traffic signals with pedestrian crossing facilities at this junction, Garforth Street, Middleton Road and Pearl Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. I call on Councillor Adrian Alexander to ask a question as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been asked by the residents of Oldham House, Hood Square and local householders about whether there is a possibility of a traffic island on Oldham Road Spring Ahead opposite the bus stops to help the elderly in crossing this part of the road safely. I know these are hard times due to these awful government's cuts in all departments, but is there some kind of hope I can give the residents? Because I'm led to believe there isn't any funding for this kind of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've had further discussions with officers this afternoon about this particular issue, and you're quite right about the difficulty with the funding. There's a difference between revenue funding and capital funding. But a full study is required to assess if it is viable to install a pedestrian refuge at this point, as the road is quite narrow and there's a natural bend, and I believe there are quite a few bus stops, etc. in the area. A feasibility study is essential to determine the most appropriate solution, and the district's executive have received a fee proposal to carry out this study. I've questioned the amount of that fee proposal, Mr. Mayor, this afternoon. I'm talking further with officers, and I will do my very best to achieve a positive outcome on this particular issue. Although, as ever, we can't always promise that we'll get that, but we will do our best.
I'm sure you will, Councillor Hibbert. Thank you for that. As I introduced at the beginning of this item, that the questions are allocated on a political balance. Now we have an opportunity for the minority opposition parties to ask any questions that they wish to have. So do we have any questions? Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to ask the Cabinet member, again Councillor Hibbert, if he would consider improving the safety of pedestrians in the road in Saddleworth, but also in the borough, by improving the lighting. The new lighting cones which here have been fixed around the borough have much improved the road carriageways and will save, hopefully, on the running costs now and in the future. The design of the new lighting column often causes the road to be well lit, but the footpaths are often in the shade, with caused by the trees and the shrubs at the side of the road. At this time of the year, with the loss of tree leaves, there's less of a problem, but this may be the best time to prune back these hedges and tree branches. That will, again, will only increase as a problem in the springtime again. I believe a well-lit area is often a safer area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sheldon. I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond, but to say that unlike the other questions, this wasn't submitted previously, so it would be perfectly acceptable for you to either answer now or provide a written answer to the honourable member.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you know me better than to offer me an opportunity not to speak in this chamber. As you say, I've had no notice of this particular question, but I can say this. Last night I met with Councillor Murphy and we went through the local transport plan. And Councillor Murphy was perfectly satisfied that all the work that we are proposing is shared as evenly as possible right through every part of the borough, and actually commented on that. So we are doing as much as we can. Borough like to make all junctions safe, and safe to use and safe for pedestrians as well as drivers. As regards to lights, if you wish to give me a clear indication of exactly where you're referring to, Councillor Sheldon, I'll make sure that they're investigated. What we do when lights are first installed, it takes a while for them to adapt to the computer timing system. So it can take a week or two before the lights start lighting up in coordination with the others in the area. But of course, things can go wrong. You tell me what's going wrong and I'll do my best to resolve it. Thank you, Councillor Sheldon.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. Does the other minority opposition party wish to ask a question on ward or district matters? Okay, thank you. I call on Councillor Judge to ask a question as submitted, please.
Mr. Mayor, the question's already been answered, so with your permission I'd like to withdraw it.
That's fine, thank you, Councillor Judge. I call on Councillor Ames to ask a question as submitted, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member for Housing and Highways investigate why there is a delay in resolving why poor houses, completed properties remain empty, whilst other houses on the site were let some months ago? The homes are 17, 19, 21 and 23 Hollins Road, Oldham.
Thank you, Councillor Ames. I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond, please.
On this occasion, Mr. Mayor, could I ask Councillor Ames to let me take the opportunity to discuss further with officers, because the response that people have given to me and that have been put before me bears no relation to his question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. I call on Councillor Chatterton to ask a question as submitted, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a large dip that's found in my ward in Brighton South on the hill between Long Compton Road and Lakeside Avenue. The dip is getting slightly bigger and slightly deeper as the weeks pass. Can the relevant Cabinet Member tell me when this will be resurfaced? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chatterton. I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Chatterton. Investigations are ongoing regarding the cause of the subsidence in this area. The area is being made safe while these investigations progress. The surface will only be permanently repaired once the cause of the subsidence is resolved. I do have actually a response to Councillor Ames' question. If you wish to give it to me, ask me again, Mr. Mayor.
He's already asked the question, so if you've got the appropriate response, you might be ready to respond now. And I think that's all we'll have time for this section. Or we might have time for one more, depending on the length of your answer.
Yeah, the answer is that there is a crash barrier across the front of the properties which was introduced to the parts of the works to enable the M60. Officers will be going back to the developer this week to progress this further and find out just exactly what's going on.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Sedgwick to ask a question as submitted, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question relates to incidents of antisocial behaviour outside Lee's Library. The library has a Wi-Fi facility Unfortunately, this is not turned off at times when the library is closed and quite a kids gather around the building at night, as they are able to access the facility on remote devices outside the library. The situation is linked to the police being called out on a regular basis in response to complaints from local residents about the noise. Please can I ask the Cabinet Member, is it possible for the Wi-Fi facility to be turned off outside library opening hours so residents can get some peace? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sedgwick. I call on Councillor Brownridge to respond, please.
The answer, Councillor Sedgwick, is yes.
Oh,
We had a similar problem with the gallery, and it's been said we've asked you to turn off the galleries not open, so we've asked them to extend that to East Library also.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brownridge. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this item on the agenda, so we move to the formal council business. Apologies. I have received apologies for absence from Councillor Kirkon, Councillor Hudson and Councillor Sharp. Item 3, minutes. Is Council agreed that the Council minutes from the meeting held on the 9th of September 2015 are agreed as a correct record of this meeting? Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members in respect of matters to be determined by the Council at this meeting? Can members declare any matters to the meeting? There will also be a form circulated around the chamber for members to complete if they have an interest.
Mr Mayor, Cabinet minutes on the 21st of September, agenda item 8, as a council appointed member of First Choice Homes. Best be safe than sorry. Thank you.
Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Appointed by the council to the boards of Unity and Unity joint venture boards on the various boards of OCS or CSH. Could be any item on the agenda.
Councillor Hibbert.
Same declaration as Councillor Murphy, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Brownridge. Councillor Judge.
Cabinet minutes 21st of September, item 10, page 44, item 12, page 46, 513, member of the board for Oldham Coliseum.
Councillor Rigglesworth.
Item 9, the budget. I'm a trustee at Positive Steps Oldham.
Councillor Jabbar.
Unity Partnership Board, JB Board, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Harrison.
Board member of OCS, OCSH, so anything that refers to that in the agenda.
Councillor Dean.
Both units partnership boards.
Councillor Chauhan. Councillor Shuttleworth. I'll come back.
Same Cabinet minutes of the 21st of September, items 10 and 12 relating to Oldham Coliseum by virtue of my appointment by Statutory Function Board.
Councillor Fielding.
Item 9, budget proposal, Director of Positive Steps Oldham.
Councillor Ginny Alexander. Councillor Dearden.
Positive Steps Oldham.
Councillor Riyad Ahmed. Did you have a okay. Councillor Cosgrove.
Just the evening on links on Community Horizons.
Councillor Roberts.
I'm answering my Positive Steps Oldham.
Deputy Mayor.
Items 10 and 12 on Cabinet 21st of September, the Coliseum Board.
Councillor Williamson.
Director Positive Steps, agenda item 9.
Councillor Sykes.
Unity Partnership Board.
Is that everybody? Have I missed anything? Thank you. Item 5, urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. Item 6, communications. Council will be aware of the recent passing of Right Honourable Michael Meacher.
Microphone, Mr. Mayor. Microphone.
My apologies. Item 6, communications. Council will be aware of the recent passing of Right Honourable Michael Meacher, Member of Parliament for Oldham West and Royton, since 1970, and Honorary Freeman of the Borough. Can I just, before I give opportunity to the members, say that how deeply saddened I personally was on the news of the sudden death of a dear friend and a very well respected Member of Parliament. Michael was a true champion for the people of Oldham, and he was an excellent Member of Parliament. He served the people of Oldham well during his distinguished political career, spanning over 45 years, and has made a difference in so many people's lives, and I'm sure he will be dearly missed, and my thoughts and prayers are with family and friends. And I have received requests from councillors who would like to pay tribute to Michael. Can I first of all call upon Councillor Dean to say a few words, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Michael was a true gentleman, a man that was kind, considerate, and always had time for other people, and particularly his constituents. And he was a good listener. And so many thousands of people have expressed their sorrow and regret. Lucy Ann, his wife, would like to express publicly thanks to the consideration that she received from literally thousands and thousands of people. But Michael just wasn't a nice guy. He was a guy that mattered. He dedicated his life to fight social justice, to fight poverty, and to make the world a lot better place. And he had a lot of success, both locally and nationally. I think a lot of the things that we see and take for granted, Michael initiated and started. As an example, he was the minister that actually introduced recycling as a major element. But he didn't just do it by giving councils dictate. He actually provided the capital for the wheeler bins and various other things that actually has risen recycling throughout the country from about 2% to presently about 40-45%. And those are just some of the things that practically we can see every day. He was a major player in the Kyoto Climate Change Conference and was responsible for that significant progress that was made there. And of course, one of the groundbreaking things that has stood for literally hundreds of years, and that was the right to roam, where vast thousands of square miles of this country, people weren't permitted to roam. He introduced legislation to create that. And those are just some of these outstanding things on a national basis that really matter every day to people now. But not only that, he was always at the forefront of getting this council resources to build new schools, working with the NHS to build hospital facilities and healthcare facilities, as well as making sure that people right across the place was provided for. He made a massive commitment in many, many campaigns over the years to people. And it was quite saddening, I suppose, looking back. I spoke to him 2 days before he died, when he was in hospital. And Michael's comments was, yeah, I'm all right, I'll get better soon, because I have to get better. I have to fight against the tax credits. We have to make progress. We have to stop the tax credit cuts. People are going to really suffer. And that was his concern. That was what he was worried about. Obviously, that he was profoundly ill. But not only did he fight for people, he was actually a visionary. A lot of people don't realise that he wrote a lot of books, a lot of pamphlets, and it's quite interesting to read them. And I always remember going back a very long time, and I'm quite clear doing these days, to 1968 when he first came to Oldham in a by-election. Michael was fighting the 1968 by-election and the 1971 on introducing a minimum wage. Well, sorry, a living wage. Now we got there 45 years later, and we just And that's just one of the many things he did. As an example, he wrote quite a significant book in 2001 that forecasts, unfortunately, the banks collapsing because of the way they were actually lending money. And you can go right through the documents that he's written so many times. He's highlighted things that are happening. His latest campaigns were on parliamentary democracy, as an example. He just thinks Parliament is just being used as another stamp, and people just aren't listening. And he was determined in that campaign. And subsequently, again, there's another publication that's just recently come out that he actually edited, which is a very good read about how Parliament really should start listening to MPs and to people. So those were some of the things that he did. He was actually an extremely inspirational speaker. He was demanded right throughout the country constantly to go and address meetings on so many things that he had knowledge of. As we know, he actually served 29 years both as a shadow minister and as a minister. And he, in that time, covered 9 portfolios. And he picked up enormous forensic knowledge of every single portfolio that he held. He actually numerised one, which fortunately I did, and a lot of other people did. He used to spend from 10 o'clock when Parliament finished to 2 o'clock in the morning going through, studying, finding out what was happening, making sure that he was aware of things that he could actually work on. And that was the sort of person he was. He wanted to get the best for people. And he didn't just stick, he was a very left-wing MP, yes, but he didn't stick to dogma. He actually created his own policies, his own ideas, his own thoughts. And just to finish, because I know a lot of other people want to speak, Michael, I suppose, like the song, I did it my way, and he did it my way. And for one, I'm extremely pleased with it. And I hope the rest of the country are.
Thank you, Peter. Talking about the books he read, I tried reading once and I ended up spending more time looking at the dictionary than I could use the book, so I stopped at that stage. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, Michael, great guy. I met Michael at the first time I ever met him was we had an election at the Worth Hall and we voted Michael in. Charles Morris at the time was the MP. And then from there we had some wonderful meetings. There was the good days and the bad days. We had the Tories in power and the Labour Party were battering him as best they could. And Michael used to come every month to the Spinners Hall, and he used to take a lot of flack off us. We used to be angry. The days it was lovely in the Labour Party in them days. We were brothers and sisters and comrades at the Spinners Hall. And I can remember a couple of instances. First of all, believe it or not, I went to his house one week when he bought the little cottage off Littleton Road there, and I'll tell you what we had. We had chili rice and Lucian, cooked the meal and what have you, and Labour councillors and that were there. And then there was a time when I want to mention the likes of Councillor Shuttleworth. Councillor Shuttleworth worked hard for Failsworth West Labour Party. Shirley Buckley worked hard for Failsworth West Labour Party. Councillor Shuttleworth, he used to organise fundraising. We had some of the top Labour MPs there. We had the best one ever was at the Bower Hotel. By the way, I got a kiss once off, it'll come to me in a minute, top. She was an MP at the time, and it was on the cheek at the Advance Hotel.
Councillor Bates, can I ask you concentrate on the subject matter?
Yeah, well, it's all to do with being involved with Michael. But the best one ever was when we had the late John Smith, wonderful man, at the Bower Hotel, Graham, you can remember. And I'll finish now on this one. I'll finish one on this one. At the Bower Hotel, Graham invited John Smith. And I was sick of top Tories in the government saying that all the taxes they pay, and they're not having this and they're not having that. It was attacking us, the workers, and they were tightening us up all the time. And I said to John Smith, John, these people, the Tories here, that are slagging working class people and cutting them all the time. I said,
Councillor Bates, I remind you to please stick to the subject matter.
yeah, but these were nice times.
We are paying tributes to Michael.
Well, all right. Well, these were nice times, and I remember them, and they're deep down in my heart. It was a wonderful man, Lucian as well, and all the people that worked around him at the time in the Labour Party, where we were brothers and sisters, and it was a pleasure to meet that man. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. Councillor Jabbar?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for giving me the opportunity to pay my personal tribute. I knew Michael Meacher when I was a young man, and the first time I met him was when I took a constituent of mine, a friend of mine, I was in a councillor there, to his surgery to talk about a divided family case. And I was really struck by how genuinely he was concerned about the case, the injustice where the father was here and the family was over there, and the family couldn't join the father. And you know, when you explain something to Michael, sometimes it took a little bit to get across your point, but when he got it, my goodness me, didn't he take it extremely seriously. And I remember him just writing down the entire case, and then within a couple of days, the friend that I took to represent actually got a letter from Michael setting out what he actually written to the Foreign Office about this case, making the case for the settlement. And then shortly after that, the immigration people actually allowed the case, and the families were united. And I was struck by how personable he was, because obviously at the time he was a very established international person. And when Councillor Dean talked about Michael's legacy on climate change, I think one of the things that we really need to understand, Michael's legacy for me is in two parts. Firstly, the part that he was a great international voice on climate change, and the Kyoto Agreement. He made that happen for me, and we should all remember that. But the second bit is this, Mr. Mayor, is the thousands of cases that he actually did for the people of Oldham. And those cases, because of his representation of those cases, actually changed thousands of lives, and for that we're extremely grateful. And I want to pay my personal tribute to him. Just let me finish on a lighter note. Last general election and the local election, we were canvassing in Italian North. Barbara was there, Mohan and I think Butler was there. And he turned up, this is springtime, he turned up in a blazer. And we were all wrapped up in jackets and everything else. And suddenly there was this mighty downpour, and he didn't have anything, just a blazer. So I ran to my car, which was nearby, and got in an umbrella. But by the time I came, and by the time this downpour was over, everyone was absolutely soaked, and we weren't in a state to carry on the canvassing. And I said to Michael, what are you doing? You can't be coming out like that in this way. He says, oh, don't worry about it. The skin are there to protect us from the elements. Yeah, he says it is what from. And that just shows the commitment he had to the Labour Party and the commitment to support individual candidates in the wards. Mr. Mayor, I just conclude by saying that he was a brilliant MP for Oldham. He'd done a great deal for this borough, and I will remember, and everyone will remember him with a great deal of respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. Councillor Ahmed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to pay my own personal tributes to Michael, who was a great friend of mine and my family. I got to know Michael in late 80s when I joined the Labour Party, and I first went to this great place, Spinners Hall. I think people have done so much in that place and achieved so much. I always liked going to Spinners Hall. But Michael was very compassionate, as Councillor Dewan was saying. Go to his advice clinics, and they always ran late. And they were always ran late because whenever somebody went in to see him, he listened very, very compassionately. And whoever was whoever the constituent was, came out fully satisfied that he or she has been fully listened to, they should be given all the time they needed, and their issue is going to be taken care of. Michael worked with me very hard when we applied for funding to build new health centres in Oldham when I was chair of the NHS. And we applied for this lift scheme, and he went round to ministers and all the relevant civil servants to make sure that Oldham got the millions of pounds and we were able to build new health centres throughout Oldham. He's got many achievements, but for me, those will be some of the major achievements that people of Oldham will benefit for a long time to come. Michael always made an effort to mix in the environment that he went through, but their local customs and creeds and culture. He will often go to mosques if somebody's died or there's some other function going on, and he will take his shoes off and he will sit on the floor. It is not an easy thing to do, but Michael will sit on the floor for a very long time, very comfortably, fully taking part in the ceremony and everything. But yet, amongst many other qualities, one of the qualities was that he is one who could get away with things that we couldn't get away with. Michael was not very good at technology. He was very late in getting a mobile phone. So he had to go to public booths to make phone calls. Quite often, when I was living at Dental Lane, because it was strategically placed, he would come to my house and make phone calls there. One day he had to speak to Deputy Prime Minister. He was the Minister for the Environment, and he had issues to do with the safety of the nuclear reactor. And he had to speak to him. He wasn't getting anywhere with civil servants. He said, I've written the note in red box, whatever they call it, a few times and I don't get a reply. So he eventually said, I'm going to speak to John Prescott. He said, can I use your phone? I said, yeah, of course you can. Gave him the phone, and he said, Riaz, this is a private phone, private conversation. You mind going out for a while? So he kicked me out of my own house. I stood outside. It took about half an hour, and I'm stood outside my house for half an hour. And then he called, it's all right, you can come in now. I've done the conversation. I know he didn't think much of it, but that's how he worked. He was a great friend, excellent person to know. He will be dismissed by me and my family. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Councillor Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I suppose it doesn't give me pleasure, it gives me no pleasure at all, but I want to be clear on speaking on behalf of all my colleagues here in terms of Michael. And I'll try not to touch on some of the things that other people have covered, but I think it's only right and proper with somebody that length of service that there is an appropriate tribute to one of Oldham's finest citizens. Tonight, as people know, he was a Member of Parliament for 45 years, first being elected in June 1970. He's been a duty minister, as some people have alluded, in a variety of different places, including health, social security, and he served under Labour Prime Ministers Wilson and Callaghan, and then later under Tony Blair as Environment Minister. Michael was never afraid to speak out, sometimes as a minority voice in his party, but I don't think he cared. And in fact, I think that's what sometimes when he was his happiest. In some instances, tilting at windmills is how I fondly remember him. And they were always about issues he felt passionately about, be it environment, housing, nuclear weapons, poverty. Some of these issues he had my complete support on. And he was a man of great principle. Michael, to his credit, was prepared to sacrifice his ministerial position in protest over the conduct of the Iraqi war. And we know he was right on that note, don't we? And the mess we find ourselves in that part of the world. One political issue, and it's been touched upon, which Michael particularly made, was his commitment to safeguarding the environment. And I think I said this at his Freeman of the Borough making speech, having from a friend who worked for a non-governmental organisation. They still consider him the best environment minister of any political persuasion that they've dealt with in terms of understanding their brief and responding to their requests. He also spoke out on national issues and issues that affected the people of Oldham and what mattered to them. And in a period of increasing austerity, and I'm afraid with an increasing north-south divide, there was never more of a need for somebody to be a dedicated advocate of some of the issues facing this town and borough than we had with him in Westminster. On a personal level, I enjoyed working with him when I was leader of the council, always found him approachable, willing to work across party boundaries on issues of importance that affected the borough of Oldham and its people. I also enjoyed his company, might surprise some of you, and that of his partner, Lucianne, on the many social functions and more formal occasions we met. So it's a real privilege to be able to support his proposal to be an honorary agreement, and I'm so pleased we did that when we did. It was all invited properly. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't want to dwell too long. With Michael's passing, I get to say that Oldham has lost a great friend and a great advocate. And whoever follows him into Westminster will have a very, very big pair of shoes to fill. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. Finally, can I call upon Councillor McMahon to pay his tribute to Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In this job you speak often about people that have passed away, and to be honest, because I'm still a youngster, as some people point out, I often speak about people who actually I didn't have a relationship when they were at the peak of their political profession. This is difficult because it's somebody that I knew very well, increasingly as council leader. I don't want to allow emotion to overtake. I do think, Warren, your contribution was just terrible. Whatever your own view about the Labour Party at the moment, to use a event like this, an occasion like this, to make a cheap dig at the Labour Party, I just think is pretty cheap. I hope you enjoyed it. I think most people thought it was pretty disgusting, to be honest. Michael, to a lot of us in here, Mr. Mayor, was a really close friend. He was the type of person that you warmed to, his nature, his smile, the twinkle in his eye, and his massive intelligence. I mean, the things he knew about and the level of detail he knew about was just really inspiring. He was captivating. If you're in conversation with him, he was a fascinating person to be around. When news came through that Michael passed away, I was actually on a train down to London when the call came, and I'd taken off the seat to go to the vestibule to take the call. And you know the signal on the train to London is just pretty awful, really. It's a very broken conversation from somebody in the Labour Party. He said, "Have you heard about Michael?" At which point the phone just started to crackle, and it was a very odd conversation when he came back eventually and said, "So let me know if you need anything." And then to put the phone down. I didn't quite know what kind of the middle bit, which transpired to be actually quite an important bit. So I phoned back and asked, sorry about that, the phone cut off, what's this about Michael? And of course he said he'd passed away. I can't have been the only one who, for 20 minutes after finding out, struggled to regain my composure and to feel confident enough to go back in the carriage to take my seat again. It was like being hit by the train I was on, to be honest. I've got a number of fond memories about Michael. On a personal level, he was a massive confidant. You could tell Michael anything and you would know it wouldn't go any further. And in politics, that's a very, very rare friend indeed. He was good at advice. He had the wisdom of an owl, which in Oldham was always helpful. But he really, really loved and cared about the town, and he really wanted to do well. And I think, you might put me and Michael together and say, on a political level, maybe our politics are completely aligned on some issues, but as friends and people who wanted to make this borough a better place, were absolutely united and wanted it to do well, and Michael was a great support because of that. So two kind of recent memories. One, of course, in 2013 we gave Michael the honour of Freeman of the borough. He was the 25th recipient of that. There aren't many people on that board. And unlike Winston Churchill, of course, Michael actually turned up to collect us, which was quite a relief on that basis. But I don't know if you can cast your mind back to when Michael received that. His humility, he was so humble about it. And when we told Michael that he was due to be nominated for it, he cried. He was so touched that Oldham should think it appropriate to give him effectively what is our highest honour. It's the most significant thing that we can give somebody. He said, "Is that right? What have we done to deserve it?" And when you kind of recounted, well, actually, this is what you've done, Michael, and wherever you went with Michael in town, generally, it was almost like a celebrity. If you were door knocking, people would come out excited because Michael Meach was on the door. Even people that weren't of our political persuasion, if Michael was on the street, they would be excited because of it. And that's because people remembered him from standing on the box in the engineer or the works yard, giving his political speech during the election campaigns or in the local press or whatever. He definitely had star quality that he took. And I don't think he ever took up his optional walking sheep or geese through the town centre, which is quite a relief. I was worried about the road closure order that might have been required had he wanted to take that up. The last time I've seen him on a one-to-one level, we have our kind of regular MPs meetings there, was actually during the leadership result for the Labour Party. And Michael had quite usually arrived late when everybody else was seated and we were waiting for the event to open. He rushed down the centre of the aisle and I was sat near the front with a vacant seat for somebody else who turned up. So Michael would beeline to his chair. And I stood up to see him. And with everybody else sat down, we just gave each other a hug. And as I sat back down, somebody else said, "What on earth are you doing hugging your MP?" I said, "Oh, it's Michael." Because actually it's very unusual for a council leader and for an MP to have such a close bonded relationship. It's usually one of tension and friction for different reasons. But that was kind of the person that Michael was. He was very warm as a human being and a very decent person indeed. On behalf of the council, on behalf of the Labour group, I can't say anything more to Michael than just thank you for being a very decent person, for serving Oldham in the way that you have, for sticking up for our town when it needed sticking up for, and for fighting for working people that are just trying to get on in life. Michael was a fantastic advocate, he was a fantastic friend, and we really, really miss him.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. Can I thank all the speakers for paying tribute to Michael, and can I also recognise that all of you who did put your hand up, I'm sure you all have individual tales to tell about Michael, but obviously time was of essence. So can I ask Council to hold a minute silence in memory of the Right Honourable Michael Meach.
Thank you.
Item 7, petitions. There is one petition to note outlined in the report. Item 8, outstanding business from the previous meetings. There is one item of outstanding business. I call on Councillor Jabbar to move and Councillor Fielding to second the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I rise to move the motion as printed in the Green Book. Mr. Mayor, the 2012 Welfare Benefit Act resulted in £90 million a year being lost to claimants in Oldham. The Tory government continued to attack the poorest and the most vulnerable in our community with yet another welfare benefit bill which will take £12 billion out of the welfare benefit bill nationally. The government says that they're doing this to balance the national deficit, which was created by the recession in 2008. So, Mayor, I would just like to reiterate how this recession was created. It was created by greedy bankers wanting to make lots of money very quickly, not by the benefit claimants of this town or elsewhere in this country. And yet again, we see the benefit claimants are being punished. This government is willing to give tax breaks to millionaires, but continue to attack the weakest in our community. I just want to run through the main proposal of the welfare benefit bill, which is running through the Houses of Parliament currently. Firstly, Mr. Mayor, the proposal is to freeze the working age benefits for the next 4 years, starting from April 2017. This will have a direct impact on 31,000 households in Oldham. Secondly, they're looking to make changes to housing benefit, including removing automatic entitlement to housing benefit for childless 18 to 21-year-olds, and this will impact on 8,700 residents in the borough. And thirdly, of course, Mr. Mayor, the much talked about reduction in tax credit, which will impact on 23,000 households in Oldham. I just want to give an example of what this might do if it's implemented. Take a married couple with 2 children on a salary of £17,900 per year. They stand to lose over £2,000 from their current working tax credit. This amounts to something like £38 per week. Mr. Mayor, we haven't done a quick estimate, and this is on the council agenda, item 19, that if these proposals are actually implemented, then something like 2,000 households in Oldham would lose £3,800 per year from just this single measure of the reduction in council tax, tax credits. It is simply not acceptable. The poorest and the vulnerable are taking another hit on their benefit. We want to say very clearly in this motion, we are opposed to that. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Osborne talks about the Conservative Party being the party of the working class, and he wants to support people who are working. How is that true when a working couple lose over £2,000 simply because of these proposed measures? Mr. Mayor, we have done an analysis, detailed analysis of the proposal, and I can assure you that these proposals will have a major impact on the most vulnerable and the weakest in our community. And I hope that people can see that, and if you need reassurance, please have a look at item 19. And because of that, the £90 million already been taken out. These measures, if we look at the total impact over the next 4 years, is another 58 million on top of the 90 million. So I'm just making an appeal to everyone in this room. Please support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. I call on Councillor Fielding to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to second the motion as printed in the Green Book. When the Chancellor seeks to justify the cuts he's making to the welfare budget, he states that it's his ambition to create a low welfare, low tax, high wage economy, and that all this is necessary to reduce the deficit. That's the deficit that was supposed to have been eliminated by now. And I wouldn't disagree that we should spend much less on welfare than we do. But I do disagree with the way that he's chosen to go about trying to achieve that. The Chancellor's plan so far has been to continue to reduce the value of benefits paid to those who find themselves in a position where they need to receive them in order to survive. Even before the plan to take the £12 billion out as part of these plans emerged, a number of changes and reductions have already happened. Thousands of people, as we've debated here before, have already been assessed as fit for work to move them on to lower benefits. The annual increase in benefits has been changed to be no more than 1%, as opposed to the previous arrangement where they were increased in line with inflation. And a cap on the amount of benefit a household can receive has been imposed, forcing many people out of their homes in something that's been described by the Conservative Mayor of London as tantamount to social cleansing in the capital. The evidence shows that this isn't sustainable. As I said, the deficit should have been eliminated by now, but it's not. And the reason it hasn't been eliminated is because public sector spending has gone up to pay for the consequences of cuts to the welfare budget. Slashing benefits to the jobless, the sick and the disabled has not delivered any financial saving because the effect of those cuts has led to more people accessing acute services, more people accessing expensive mental health treatment because they have money worries, more children going to the doctors with health conditions they develop through being malnourished, more police call-outs to domestic disturbances because families have been pulled apart by the financial troubles imposed on them. And if anything, the bill for these kinds of things will only grow, because the figures that I used to pull this information together were from a report by New Economy Manchester that was published in 2012, so they're already dated. In practice, his low welfare pledge has not, and no sensible economist believes it ever will have, delivered a saving. It's just moved the expense from one government department to another. If the Chancellor is serious about reducing the welfare budget in a sustainable way, he will be doing more on the high-wage economy part of his plan that I talked about earlier, and getting people into work. If the government had a coherent industrial strategy, more people could find jobs. Not just any jobs, but jobs that will pay well enough to not require topping up with tax credits. Though they clearly have no plan for industry and job creation, we only have to look across at the North East, where they failed to step in to prevent the steel industry from going under. Whatever happened to the March of the Makers? This government isn't interested in helping people find work. It's not interested in the human cost of the financial choices it is making. And it's not interested in the effect its decisions are having on towns like Oldham. It's just obsessed with looking at the figures on a balance sheet and seeing where it can take spending from to fulfil its dogmatic obsession with reducing the size of the state. And even on that, on reducing the size of the state, the government is failing because spending is going up in all these other departments. Please support this motion and vote to protect our town and our neighbours and friends from these illogical and ideologically driven cuts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. There has been an amendment proposed for this motion, so can I call on Councillor Harkness to move and Councillor Sines to second the amendment, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The amendment relates specifically to tax credits. In April this year, David Cameron was asked if tax credits would be cut after the election, and he said no. Michael Gove was also asked in an interview if tax credits would be cut, and he said no. So we see 6 months later that we've been lied to. The whole rhetoric they are using around these cuts is that welfare is by giving examples of minorities who abuse the system. Those individuals should be tackled and not demonised, people who need the extra support. These tax credit cuts affect the working poor. They are morally wrong and a disincentive to work. The Prime Minister uses the rise in the tax threshold as an excuse. People not having to pay tax until they earn more money is obviously a good thing and something the Liberal Democrats had to fight for actually in the last government. And it's good that they're keeping this, but this is not an excuse to penalise people who are trying to work. And around 16,400 families who live in the borough of Oldham will lose out on the Conservative plans to cut tax credits. Families will see their entitlements reduced on average by £1,350 per year as part of the government proposals. An estimated loss to local families and the Oldham economy of over £22 million. Across the country, 300,000 children pushed into poverty. This change will make it hard for people to get on in life. Tories say tax credits are not a long-term solution. Until we have a proper living wage though, which actually is a living wage, then tax credits are a necessity for people who work in low-paid jobs. The alternative is that they are better off not working. It is economically stupid for the government to adopt such a policy. Last week, the Liberal Democrats in the House of Lords put a motion that would mean that the tax credits cuts would be abandoned. Obviously, the Tory peers did not support this. Neither did the Labour peers, and therefore the motion failed. The Lords did approve a delay and a review, and I welcome this, although the Liberal Democrats wanted the tax credits cuts to be shelved completely. But it does give us an opportunity during the review that I hope we can move forward and as a council contribute to the debate by showing our joint opposition to the tax credit cuts. Cutting tax credits is morally and economically wrong too. The government do not have to take from the poorest families in the country. They are choosing to do so, and at the same time they are giving tax breaks for millionaires.
who are not being asked to pay a penny more. No amount of political spin will protect the individuals who have to live with the reality. Please support the amendment and support the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can I call upon Councillor Sykes to second the amendment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, in seconding the amendment, and like I say, as my colleague says, our amendment focuses on the impact on the welfare bill on the working poor, in particular, sort of lowest paid workers trying to provide for their families. It's been commented on by a number of speakers, but I'll make mention of it in the amendment. It talks about David Cameron being on the side of the working poor. Well, if he's on my side, I wouldn't want him to be against me. Doesn't do me any favours and isn't doing them any favours. Let's have some facts and figures. And unlike Councillor Jabbar, we haven't done a detailed analysis because you don't need one. This is wrong, you know it's wrong, and somebody in a reception class will know it's wrong. No disrespect when I say you've done some detailed analysis, but let's just have some facts and figures. 7,700 families in Oldham West and Right, 6,600 in Oldham East and Saddleworth, and 6,200 in Ashton will be affected by the tax credit cuts. If you just take the figures in the two Oldham constituencies and do an average, that's my maths, for the two wards that are in the Ashton one, that's 15,000 families will lose out if these cuts go ahead in our borough. That'll push around 26,000 children in our borough into poverty, and it will make it harder for low-income families to pay rent, put food on the table and afford heating. We're not talking about holidays here, we're talking about people feeding their families and keeping them warm and safe. We do believe the government should stand up for families who are trying to do the right thing in working to support themselves, not stab them in the back. Tax credit change which come into effect next year will be a disaster for millions of working families across Britain, and as Liberal Democrats we can simply not stand by and let that happen. If they really wanted to do something about the poorest working families, the Chancellor in his autumn statement will commit the government to putting a full compensation package in place before any changes are contemplated to tax credit cuts. He'd introduce a national living wage. He'd increase tax allowances and national insurance thresholds to enable the lowest paid employers to keep more of the money they earn and therefore do what they want to do a decent day's work for a decent day's pay in order to look after their families. Because what's going on in our nation, because we need to be doing as a nation is giving a hand up, not necessarily a hand out to our families. Mr. Mayor, I'd ask members to support the amendment. We're sympathetic with the resolution. We think our amendment and the other one, if we don't get a chance to debate it or we'll vote on it, also strengthens it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. I'm afraid we don't have any time left to debate the amendment or the motion, so I'm going to go straight to a vote. Can I ask to show all those in favour of the amendment, please? Yes, all those against? Okay, so that amendment is carried. Can I call on Councillor Sykes to move and Councillor Harkness to second the second amendment? Thank you. Right, again, we're going to move straight to a vote. Can I ask to show hands if you are in favour of the amendment? Okay, all those against? Okay. So that amendment has lost. Okay, so now we vote on the amended motion, just with the first amendment. Does the councillor agree the amended motion? Those in favour, please show. Thank you. Those against? None? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 9, budget proposals for 2016, 17 and 2017 and 18 tranche 1. Does Councillor agree that this item is timed for 40 minutes? Councillor McMahon will have 15 minutes to speak, which can be utilised either in moving the budget or as his right of reply, and Councillor Sykes will have 10 minutes. All other speakers will have 4 minutes. This will require a suspension of the Council procedure rules to extend the guillotine on this item. Do we all agree? Thank you. I call on Councillor McMahon to move and Councillor Jabbar to second the budget proposals for 2015-2016.
Move, Mr Mayor, and reserve the 15 minutes as a right of reply. Thank you.
Councillor Jabbar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr Mayor. So this report is actually in two parts. It deals with the first tranche of the budget proposal for 2016-17, and the second bit deals with the revised budget reduction target for both 16-17 and 17-18. Mr Mayor, we've taken again the opportunity to produce a 2 years budget. First of all, I just want to draw everyone's attention to the fact that we've actually revised the reduction that's required for both years, 16-17, from 29.89 million to 18.194 million for 16-17, and for 17-18, 25.2 million for that year. However, what is really important, Mr Mayor, is that to note that over the medium term, the council's budget reduction requirement is likely to remain around the same level. It is the phasing that has changed. So effectively, Mr Mayor, we are still required to find the saving that we anticipated, but what we're doing, we're just finding it over a 2 year period. Whilst this budget reduction target has decreased, we should not forget that from 2009-10 to the financial year 15-16, the budget reduction of 176 million has already been made. Based on the current figures for 16-17, this will have increased to 194 million, and if the target for 17-18 remains, then the total will be 219 million pounds. So as you can see, Mr Mayor, although the reduction has happened for 16-17, the actual total amount of money that will be taken out by the end of 17-18 is over 200 million pounds, which is a very significant amount. What we've got here, Mr Mayor, today is the first tranche of the proposal, which amount to 9.35 million pounds. This has been to the over the scrutiny committee, the PBFM committee. They've had a detailed look at it, and in the papers today, you've got all the proposal, including the quality impact assessment. There was a slight misprint on one of the schedules. That's that was on page 2, appendix 2. That has been circulated again, so please have a look at that on the table. So basically, Mr Mayor, what we're asking the council to do today is to approve £5.974 million of the proposal, and the remaining £3.379 million is currently, we're consulting on 8 proposals, so the consultation is still ongoing, and therefore we're asking you to note that. If you're minded to approve that, then you will leave a gap of £12 million, £12.029 million. And what we did last night at the BFM meeting, Mr Mayor, that tranche 2 was considered, and that amounted to £4.131 million. Again, that will go back to Cabinet, and if Cabinet approves it, then we will bring back that proposal to the next council meeting in December. So overall, Mr Mayor, again, it's a very difficult time. It is getting incredibly difficult, but we have brought to you the first phase of the budget for next year. I just need to mention a couple of things very quickly. These are some.
Does everybody want to move an extension?
A couple of things very important, Mr Mayor, is this, that these are subject to the government comprehensive spending review, which is scheduled for 25th of November, and also the final settlement, which is likely to be just before Christmas. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Mushtaq?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, before saying anything else, I'd like to pay tribute to the hard work, dedication and ability of this council and its staff to meet the continuous barrage of challenges thrown at it by this government, making tough decisions which impact on colleagues and residents, and knowing that important services will be detrimentally impacted upon, all against the constant uncertainty with regards to what the government will do next. The people of this council managed to find ways to adapt so we can continue to provide the best services we can under the circumstances. Mr. Mayor, it seems this government only deals in contradictions and paradox. I'll explain why. The narrative of the government is that we should all live within our means, that we should work for a living, that they are the party for the hard-working people of Britain. This is the narrative. Now for the reality. The reality are policies which have led to food and fuel poverty, including the first food bank in Oldham since this government and their colleagues came to power in 2010. Despite this, they now propose welfare reforms which have been discussed at length that will cripple thousands of families, not only in Oldham but all over the country. Tying with this, court closures to deny struggling families their fundamental right to justice and put pressure on other valuable services by creating a false economy, something we discussed in the last full council. Cuts in and selling off of the NHS, and this is a good example of the contradiction and paradox I mentioned. Fuel and food poverty leads to ill health. Welfare reform will inevitably lead to people trying to access loans from loan sharks, so getting themselves further into trouble. More children will go hungry, which will impact on their education and their health. A cut in the adult skills budget denying the opportunity for people to upskill or retrain so they can get a job, whilst the government apparently is creating more employment. I could go on, Mr. Mayor, but the point I'm making is that the Tory narrative suggests they are a wonderful, caring party, but the reality is they are crushing the hard-working people and hard-working councils like Oldham. But, Mr. Mayor, what they didn't expect was the resilience of a borough like Oldham. We can see through the facade, and we will continue to work cooperatively and produce results such as achieving A-level pass rates for 2015 above the national average, creating 3,025 job-related opportunities through the Get Oldham Working Scheme, smashing the original target of 2015 for 2015. Launching of the Education and Skills Commission, signing up to and fighting for the Fair Employment Charter and living wage for our residents and staff, regenerating the town centre and so much more that I simply don't have the time to talk about here. We know what the government narrative is, but what's ours? Our narrative is summed up by this council's ambition and priorities, resulting in the following corporate outcomes: a productive place where business and enterprise thrive, confident communities where everyone does their bit, a cooperative council delivering good services to support a cooperative borough. I think the message to David Cameron and George Osborne from Oldham is very clear. It would be perfectly summed up by a simple hand gesture, but we are better than that. The message is that we will work together to get through this. We will stick together and we will come out of this better and stronger as a people, a borough and a region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mushtaq. Councillor McCann?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was on the PVFM committee, Councillor Jabbar, and having read that night, I don't bother sleeping. But again, I did have bother sleeping because my take on the PVFM committee was there were some hard questions asked on all sides by all councillors, because none of us, Mr. Mayor, wanted to do what was set out in those papers, and that was destroying years of hard work, and it was also undermining the future. We're fully aware of that, but we're in a hard place. And I think we tried to work together positively to review the suggestions in tranche 1 of that budget. And indeed, one of the suggestions where we asked that it be taken back and looked at again, it was taken back and has been looked at again. So, again, congratulations to the PVFM was listened to. I think that is important. It's an important filter, perhaps, to the administration. Most of the concerns were common concerns, And as I said, none of us really want to do them. I think that Councillor Jabbar mentioned the reduced retirement. That is a major factor that's actually has happened the last couple of years, where we've been able to say, because capital spend has not been as fast, revenue costings to cover that has not been as high. So it's meant that this year, a hard budget has in some ways been given a chance. It's been a big figure that's gone back, and Councillor Jabbar is quite correct, Mr Mayor, when he says we may have to be paid out in the future. But the point is, it's not now, and it does give us a little breathing room, manoeuvre room. And indeed, some of the capital projects have come in on time and on budget, and congratulations for that. And one of my comments is we must keep that tight control on capital spend, value for money. I think that one of the things that most distresses me is that we have tranches 2 and 3 to come. If this was it, I think we could all say it's a hard place, but we've survived it. But tranches 2 and 3 bother me, and I hope we'll continue to look at it in the same cooperative way, that actually some of our ideas may help, as they have in the past, that have been taken up by the administration. And I think it helps perhaps having sometimes a fresh pair of eyes. But we're in the same place. We're in Oldham. We're in a borough that's under pressure. We're in a borough with a low tax base. And that means there are major problems. And trying to get out of it sometimes means a risk, but it has to be a controlled risk. So, I think I've said enough there, Mr Mayor, but for Tranche 1, I would like to congratulate the BBFM system. It's worked well, and the information given. But it really is a difficult year for Oldham. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. We've got 4 minutes before I can call upon the Leader of the Opposition for his 10 minutes, and I've got 3 speakers indicating. Can I call on Councillor Stressley?
Very quick, it's just to declare an interest in item 9.
Sorry?
Declare an interest in item 9.
Thank you. Councillor D.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm going to talk boldly about this budget. I think everybody is trying their best, and unfortunately, we're trying our best against an impossible situation, because this government seems intent on destroying the social fabric of this country. They seem determined to inflict pain on ordinary people, the poor people, whether they be young, whether they be old, whether they're in families. And it really just does really annoy me. You know, people's safety, people's social being, people's care, people's health and well-being are just being destroyed. And this continual pointing of saying we have to balance the books. Well, let's balance the books by scrubbing the inheritance tax. Let's balance the books by stopping the reduction in the highest rate of tax. And there's so many things. As an example, the richest 1,000 people in this country, their wealth has grown from 160 billion pounds in 2010 to over 600 billion pounds today. And yet we're being told that the poor people and people that rely on this council for services have to pay the price. And I, for one, just can't understand why the people in this country just aren't rising up against this, because it's absolutely destroying their lives in many instances. And we really do need to take stock of where we're actually going as a country, and hopefully let's get to a better place than this, because it's continually, year in, year out, massive chunks of money being taken out of councils, being taken out of a lot of the services, such as NHS. You know, people tend to forget that £20 billion, almost a fifth of the money, has actually been taken out of the NHS, and they wonder why they're in difficulties. And we just really have to, in my view, start putting up barriers and start putting up resistance even stronger than we already have. I know that obviously everybody has been fighting these sorts of impositions for a very long time, but really I think we have to go a lot further.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor McMahon has indicated that he may not need the full 15 minutes, so we may have time for one more person who's indicated. Okay, so we've got Councillor Rahman, and if there's anybody else.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last full council, something very significant has happened in Parliament. The Tories have voted through the Charter for budget responsibility, which means that any government in the future's hands will be tied. This is the Tories' way of justifying austerity and hitting the poorest. If you look at the deficit, many more cuts will be coming in the next 5 to 10 years, and this is something that we really need to fight back on. In tough times, can I just say my colleague and friend, Councillor Jabbar, over the last 4 or 5 years has done a fantastic job in setting a budget, a balanced budget, and doing a fantastic job. So well done, Councillor Jabbar and his team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rahman. Does anybody else wish to speak? Sorry, Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think tonight there must be tens of thousands of people in this country who are reading the day that they were taken in by the Tory pledges and promises in the run-up to the general election. They bought into the promises of a party that promised to be the party of the working people, to protect the vulnerable, to reduce child poverty. But by the end of September, they've actually broken 21 of the promises. And we saw a woman a few weeks ago on Question Time who berated the government for letting her down. She trusted them and she felt so let down by them. In my portfolio, the decisions, the proposals that we make, budgetary proposals, are about the most vulnerable people in our society, our most vulnerable citizens. And in the face of the ageing population, many with complex and multiple conditions, the rising of the diagnosis of dementia, the effects of poverty, etc., etc., this is the backdrop to the decisions that we're having to make. Each year, Oldham manages to produce a balanced budget through transformation of services, making efficiencies and so forth. But we're facing year-on-year cuts with no let-up on the horizon. This threatens the health and well-being and the safety of our most vulnerable people, our citizens that we stand for, that we represent. And the risks rise year on year. Each year we're trying to do more and more with less and less. It just cannot go on like that without something giving. You see words in the budget like savings targets, efficiencies. The euphemisms, these are cuts, the year-on-year cuts to what we've got to spend. And it is a great tribute to everybody involved that we have carried on balancing the books. But as I said, how can it go on without something giving? If it was fair, it wouldn't feel as bad. But it's not fair. It's not equal across all boroughs in the country. And it's the boroughs with the highest need, the lowest economies, the lowest chance of raising their own revenues that are getting the biggest cut. That's the unfairness of it. It's not our fault that historically we're a low-wage economy. It's not our fault that historically we've got a low council tax base. We are working hard to address that, but it doesn't happen overnight. And yet we're being punished for that. Or that's how it feels anyway. So this budget tonight really attributes the people who've worked so hard to produce what they have, but a plea to the government to to have a rethink. People very often who are making these decisions have masses of money in the bank, annual incomes of 5, 6, 7, 8,000 figure annual incomes, and they're making decisions about the lives of people who are struggling by on diminishing resources each year. So again, congratulations to our finance team, to the staff in all our directorates who have produced this, but please think, where are we going to end up? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I think it's a balanced proposal, but it's not a fair proposal. It's not fair on the people who hold them. It's not fair on the people who have to come up with the proposal. Because I think the table has turned against time of Robin Hood, where Robin Hood should take from the rich and give it to the poor. Although he was doing a noble cause, but it was illegal. But now, the Tory government taking from the poor and giving it to the poor, and they're doing legally. That's my thought. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Blythe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to speak on this, but I just want to echo some of Councillor Harrison's, and my biggest fear is one of the ways we've managed the budget, us and yourselves, is we've paid our care companies one of the lowest hourly rates in the Manchester area, in fact in the country. It's very low, and my fear is we've got a train crash coming, because once that living wage starts to kick in and these people have to pay £9 an hour to the living wage at the end of this parliament, and we're still only paying less than £13 an hour to care companies, and I can't mention any names, but to care companies, and we spoke about this, then there's a train crash. It's not worth doing it. It becomes when it becomes unviable to run those companies, and we're heading down that track very quickly. And I know that directors are looking at it, they've got concerns over it, and I just think that the government are cutting too hard, too fast. The social, and what we must keep looking at is our adult welfare is not an easy target. It is, because it's one of the highest spenders, so we think it should proportionally give more to the courts. But we are treating and dealing with the most vulnerable people in society. As a borough, we do excellent. We keep people in their home as long as we can, because we know that's best for them. But without those care companies being able to do the work they do, we won't be able to do that. So it's just a plea to try and reserve those budgets for the most vulnerable. And the message we need to send back to this government, we are hitting the most vulnerable when we start hitting adult services and children's services budgets, and that's where we're getting to the point of now. And I just wish we did not have to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blythe. Councillor Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Briefly on the budget, like I said, I don't just anything like 10 minutes, I'm sure you'll tell me. I'd like to start by rising to just say unusual, and it is very unusual for us, but it's in recognition of the place where we are. There's no vote for this tonight. We won't abstain like we have done before our budgets. I'm saying we'll do the same on trenches 2 and 3, but we will vote for this tonight, and that's in a recognition of the difficult decisions that need to be made, of the lack of choices that, whatever complexion you were or any, the things that are in front of us tonight is what anybody, if they were running this council, would bring forward. Or, by a hair's breadth, they might be slightly different emphasis, but they are there. So with that, I'll start off by saying we will be voting for this. I think we've heard a lot, pleas to government. Well, I'll tell you, they're not listening, and we're going to have it. And there's just two other things before we get into some of the details of it that I just sort of can't let pass, really. Right, it was the bankers that got us partly into the mess we're in the country. But who was running the country, the government, who took all the regulations off, who encouraged them, who encouraged that laissez-faire, who made money easy to buy? Well, it were your lot. on your watch. So don't rewrite history, and let's agree about that bit that they got us into the mess. But we encouraged them to get away with it and created that culture. You were the government then. So, what we've got since May is an unfettered Tory government, and we've seen what it is. I listened to the lady on Question Time who said she'd been let down. But let's be honest, who also has let her down? We've let her down. We got topped in the election, and let's not forget you did. Not here, but elsewhere. And who would have thought, after what had gone on for the last 5 years, you'd have had a Tory majority government? But that's what we've got. That's what we've got, because we've got a corrupt voting system in this country, but that's what it's delivered. And if you're not very careful, we will have this for the length of time that everybody in this chamber will be on this planet, unless we decide to come together to do something different, to have a system that doesn't make sure England in particular is always run by the Tories, because it will be, unless there's some changes to the voting system, something we've long campaigned for, something it's interested other colleagues in the chamber, and we welcome anybody to the cause, and I know there are sections of your party do, but that's the way we need to tackle this, otherwise we're going to get some more of this in another 5 years' time, when the next Tory government is elected, I'm afraid. And I take no pleasure whatsoever standing here and predicting that, and I would love to be proved wrong. But we'll do what we usually do in local government, and what we're good at. Different than most other public services, we will produce a balanced budget. We will still make sure, certainly with this, I don't know tranche 2 and 3 is coming along, that, you know, things do work, that we do minimise the impacts on the people that are least able to look after themselves, of which we need to look after and whatever. And some of the things that we generally do for people, and we're already beginning to see that, we're either going to have to do less, we're going to have to stop doing altogether. We had a question, I noticed at the start, when people, shall we say, passing a view about what temperature the water was in a swimming pool. We'll be very lucky to have swimming pools and even water in them at all if this carries on in another 4 or 5 years. And that's the reality of it. So it isn't just about the vulnerable now, it's about some of those services that I think the people in this borough value the most. Feeling proud about their environment, be it clean, free from graffiti, feeling safe, because there's other public services besides us in terms of crime prevention being walloped, and I don't use that word lightly, Mr. Mayor, that will impact upon that. We have learnt the lesson the hard way as a council about making our green spaces safe, welcoming, places where communities come together, places where people want to be. Well, if we start taking bodies out of them, we start taking resources out of them, begin to look unkept and unloved, they will become the places they were when I first got elected this council 20-25 years ago, where many of our citizens won't wish to go. And they're so important to the quality of life, to health, to well-being, to exercise, for many of our citizens, particularly those in the most urban areas, but also those, in terms of the USP of this borough, about how near we are to the countryside and how accessible it is. And that's important in terms of our relationship and the role we have to play in Greater Manchester. So there's tough choices. There's always tough choices to balance the books. But like I say, on this occasion, we'll support you on this. I know other colleagues in the chamber who elsewhere. My colleague, Councillor McCann's already said, we'll try and work on some. We've made suggestions, we've made them in the spirit they're made, and I hope you will take them in the spirit they're made. We've made some of those in the past. I think some of those, whether you like them or not, you're going to have to look at. And if it's not this time, it'll be next time. So, in that spirit, Mr. Mayor, without any further ado, pleased to say, support this, make a plea that some of the basic things that make the quality of life bearable, tolerable, or enjoyable for our citizens are the things we need to make sure to look after, along with our vulnerable. Balancing that one between the other is a very difficult task. We recognise that. And the hard work that's gone into this by members, officers, and also the hard work by all our staff, some of which won't have a job when we finish this process. And let's not forget about them and their families.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Clearly the budget has been moved, seconded. I take no pleasure at all in this. There's been comments made about how this is a difficult time. It's not. It's an absolutely torturous time. When you go home at night and you can't sleep because you're thinking about the staff that are being made redundant, Oldhamers who can't afford to pay the bills because they're being sent out on the rate. You know, people that work their life for to have a decent job, and the council's always a decent place to come and work, somewhere safe, somewhere that cares for you as an employee. And these people that have been loyal to the council suddenly find themselves in a position where, through no fault of their own, they're suddenly surplus to requirements. Well, they're not surplus to requirements because the need in the community is still there. It's just that the council hasn't got the money to meet that demand. Listen, we might be able to set a balanced budget and law, but we are nowhere near meeting the demand in our community for public services. Our estimates today is there's something like a £20 million funding gap between the money that comes into this council and our responsibilities to provide services to the people of Oldham. How on earth have we done it? To be honest, the people of Oldham have been helpful, haven't they? They haven't really kicked off when the youth centre's closed, or the day centre's closed, or the police station's closed, or the ambulance station's closed. They haven't. Worse than that, they voted for a majority Tory government. It beggars belief that we're in a situation where the Tories now have free rein to wield the axe on towns like Oldham. And it is right, I never even want to stand up and to say that Oldham is a poor town, because I don't want it to be defined by poverty, I don't want it to be defined by our confidence. But we are a poor town, and that's a fact. And in order to meet the need of our children, our elderly, in order to have the decent public services that we need as a town, we've got to have the money to fund that. If we don't have that, the gap gets wider and wider, and while the rich get richer, the poor will get poorer. And the government make a fatal mistake if they believe and confuse dignity, which is what we have, we're proud people, with weakness. Just because we're proud, just because we have dignity, doesn't mean that we're weak. And the government should pay warning to this. If they think that year on year they can continue to do this to people of Oldham, hard-working people, try to get on in life, the workers, not the shirkers that the government have tried to attack, then they need to be very careful. There will become a point in this process where we all say collectively, do you know what, enough's enough. How far can we continue to go knowing that this council is being put on the edge, knowing this town is being put on the edge? It's not about an organisation, it's not about us. We're completely irrelevant if we don't provide the services that people rely on, surely. We're not here to justify our own existence and to meet every few weeks and have this conversation to make ourselves feel good. We're here because we deliver public services. And if those public services aren't being delivered, then it does bring into question, well, what on earth are we here to do? If all we're about is aiding and abetting the Tories to take money from poor communities to give it to our wealthy backers, then you've got to say, do you know what, there's a bit more to life than that. And there's got to be something in a moment where we say, it's probably better to die on your feet than to live forever on your knees. Oldham isn't on its knees yet. We've been able to stand up. But it does feel as though, when we have the confidence and the courage and the strength to keep fighting on, the government seem hell-bent on knocking us back. If the cuts carry on, and we do get to a situation where £219 million comes out of this council and our town, the council will not be able to meet its legal obligations. Don't take my word for it, the LJ have been very clear on this. The over 2,000 legal obligations that are placed on this local authority, it costs money to meet that. And it won't be decided in here, it's going to be decided in a high court somewhere. Somebody will test whether or not this council or another council in the country have denied them the services that they're legally entitled to. And when the judge makes his decision, and the gavel goes down, and that's it, that will have an impact right across local government, and council can start falling over. So we're doing this today because we believe, on balance, that it's still better for us to determine the budget than it is for us to stand aside and allow the government to come in and do it for us. But if the government believe they can do this, and they have no fight on their hands, they can think again.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. Does the Council Council agree the motion? Those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. We move on to item 10, Youth Council. I call on the Youth Councillors to move a motion.
New psychoactive substances, or NPS. Substances commonly known as legal highs opposing a significant risk in our communities. These drugs are designed to mimic the effects of other illegal drugs, such as cannabis, cocaine and heroin. Although they are known as legal highs, this can be a misleading title. Many of these produced substances are already under the control of the Misuse of Drugs Act, but by naming them legal highs, many young people believe that they are safe to use, and by being legal, they are not as harmful as illegal substances. This is far from true.
The issue of legal highs has been previously raised in full council back in December 2014. We know that many of us are really concerned about the problems they pose in Oldham. That was saw previously that the future consultation work needed to be undertaken by health and well-being, and it is encouraging to see that this is on the way. NPSs are mainly manufactured in China, that's in China, and lesser extent in India. They are mainly imported into the country by mail and faster parcel services. The Home Office found that they are mainly distributed to use by friends, drug dealers, head shops and other retailers outlets, including garages, the news agents, takeaways and new substances appearing rapidly on the market, often replacing those substances that have been banned. Just as small change in the chemical ingredients can create a new substances that is not yet under control of the Misuse Drug Act.
Legal highs are easily accessible. You may have seen evidence of them lying in the streets, the silver bullet type canisters that hold nitrous oxide or laughing gas, or little packets such as these. Although there are many different brands of NPS, they fall mainly into 5 main groups. So there's the stimulant type drugs. These mimic substances like amphetamines, cocaine and ecstasy. There's the downers or tranquilizers. These mimic various sedative drugs or opioid drugs. There's the hallucinogenic drugs that mimic substances like LSD. There's the dissociative drugs. These mimic substances like ketamine and PCP. And finally, the synthetic cannabinoids. These mimic the effects of cannabis. People take these substances for many of the same reasons people use other drugs. Because they enjoy the effects, they offer escapism, relaxation, shared social experiences and adventure. And with NPS, many people believe that they are legal, which just adds to the attraction.
They can create social problems such as inclusions in criminal activities, the breakdown of relationships, not engaging with school or education, and social inclusions. They create economic problems as problems develop, personal deaths, lose their jobs and have lower academic achievements and therefore affect future employment opportunities. Legal highs come at a great cost personal cost in increasing individuals, as well as a huge financial cost to the services trying to deal with the association problems they create. We cannot afford to ignore the increasing issue.
There is little information available about the long-term effects of NPS, but short-term risks include overdose and seizures that can and have resulted in death, temporary psychotic states, unpredictable behaviour, sudden increase or decrease in heart rate, breathing rate and body temperature, hallucinations, vomiting, confusion and possible aggressive behaviour, feeling suicidal and physical and psychological dependency. I think we can all see that these are dangerous substances because of the health problems that they create. Here in Oldham, we know people using NPS, and let us be clear, it's not just young people. It is estimated that the average age of an NPS user is 40. This is an issue that potentially affects all residents in our borough. The latest statistic from Oasis, Oldham's Young People's Drug and Alcohol Services, reports that 27% of their clients are presenting with legal high misuse. We believe this is set to increase unless we take action. There is work already being undertaken in Oldham to address the issue of NPS. A task and finish group has been established with representation from a range of agencies and services to look at developing a coordinated and coherent approach in Oldham to the issue of NPS misuse. We believe that the issue of NPS misuse needs to be a priority here in Oldham. We need to respond to the issue now before things get worse. We believe that there needs to be a shared strategy across Oldham from all agencies and services that includes a comprehensive campaign that raises awareness of what NPS are, prevents people from becoming users, and has a programme that enables the support of people who do use them to become non-users. We need to be working in schools to educate young people, professionals and teachers about NPS. We knew little about NPS until we undertook a workshop with Oasis Drug and Alcohol Service. Young people are being misled by the common name of legal highs, believing that they are safe to use because they are legal and not fully understanding what they are consuming. We need to be delivering work in communities to build awareness and resilience. This is not just a youth issue, as more adults use legal highs, often using them as a replacement for drugs such as heroin, cannabis and cocaine. We believe a better name for these substances is lethal highs. The ultimate price someone could pay is death. We have seen this price paid in other areas of the country. We don't want the number of lives claimed by NPS to be higher. We propose that Oldham Council recognises that NPS is a priority issue to be addressed and that it commits to supporting the work of the multi-agency task and finish group in its work to address the issue of NPS misuse in Oldham. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Does any member wish to respond? I think we've only got time for Councillor Stretton.
It's quite right that the Youth Council should bring this very serious issue to our attention. This is a bigger problem in the UK than in any other European country. Purchases of new psychoactive substances or legal highs are 4 times higher here than anywhere else in Europe. Oldham's Youth Justice Service report that over 14% of their current cases are young people known to be using what I will now forever call lethal highs. A local youth outreach team leader has reported that the use of a particular legal high, known as Happy Joker, is all over the borough, and the main areas of use are Short, St Mary's, the Huddersfield Road area, Failsworth and Roydon. A new psychoactive substances bill will become law in April 2016. The bill makes it an offence to produce, supply or offer to supply a psychoactive substance with a number of exemptions which are nicotine, alcohol, caffeine, herbal medicines and homeopathic medicines. I chair the Health and Wellbeing Board and fully intend to bring this issue back to the board. It's already the subject of a regular discussion of the Alcohol and Drug Strategic Partnership Board that I also sit on. A new psychoactive substance action plan has been developed in line with the Public Health England toolkit and partners to use, and Positive Steps have also submitted a bid for police innovation funding to develop a play to use to engage young people to help them to understand. I accept what you say that it's not all about young people, but it's quite often that the habits that people develop in their youth are habits that they never shake off in the future. Oldham trading standards are already part of a multi-agency network group which shares intelligence and information, and also visits premises to ensure compliance. I'll arrange for the local government association and council's guides dealing with new psychoactive substances to be distributed to all councillors and to the youth council, and I absolutely commit to supporting the task and finish group.
Thank you, Councillor Stetton. Councillor Sands. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to the Youth Council and to the two Youth Councillors for coming here yet again and bringing something that is a big issue, like you say, not just amongst young people but adults as well. The Home Secretary was informed in July that legislation banning all psychoactive substances needed a rewrite to avoid unintentionally criminalising people, because otherwise you could be criminalising people for having alcohol and coffee. So that would have to now be on the exemptions list. Whilst I understand that it should not be rushed through without further investigation, during that time there will be many more people dabbling with these legal lethal highs which could prove fatal. These lethal highs have already been linked to the death of 20 prisoners. It has become a type of currency in bargaining. The reason that they are not on the list of illegal drugs is because they have been tweaked at a molecular level to evade anti-drugs laws. As it states in your motion, there are many different varieties of NPS with some exotic names that seem to attract the younger generation. This is just a list that I found of all the different ones, and these are some of the snazzy packaging that attracts young people. Scooby Snacks and Mad Hatter and a number of other names. Most of these have not been tested for human consumption, so reactions are unpredictable. It also has a financial impact, as you have stated. At a meeting last week, I heard how people, and when I say people, it's not just young people, it's adults as well, are having lay-on parties. And the new terminology is a £10 bag and a bit illegal. People are getting into debt so that they can continue to use these drugs. Once hooked, it can be very difficult to get off. And the costs to the NHS in years to come is going to be astronomical if we don't get a hold of it now. How about we do what Lambeth have done and ban the use of legal highs by approving a public spaces protection order to ban the use and supply of legal highs in public areas across the whole of the borough of Oldham. So, I support what you say, and so do my colleagues on this side of the chamber, and we support a shared strategy by having a multi-agency task and finish group or an overview and scrutiny looking at it further. Whatever needs to be done should be done to save people's lives. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Does Council agree with the proposal? All those in favour? Thank you very much, that's agreed. Item 11, Leader and Cabinet Question Time. This next section is Leader and Cabinet Member Question Time. The Leader of the main opposition will ask his questions. Councillor Sykes.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Brief questions tonight. The Leader will be aware of the cyber attack conducted on the 21st of October against one of Britain's biggest internet service providers, TalkTalk. As a consequence of this attack, a significant amount of individual customer data was stolen, including bank account numbers, sort codes, credit and debit card details, dates of births and names, email addresses and phone numbers of customers. To their credit, and according to a spokesperson for the Metropolitan Police Cybercrime Unit, Talk have done everything right in bringing this matter to our attention as soon as possible, and they are cooperating fully with the ongoing criminal investigation, which is now led to an arrest. Nevertheless, this will be very worrying for our residents who pay their bills with the council electronically online, or who choose to pay by a direct debit or a credit card. What information could the leader provide us about the impact, if any, of the Talk attack on council's operations or its partners such as Unity and its customers, the residents of this borough? And what reassurance can it provide that the council has the most rigorous, as I'm sure it does, safeguards in place to keep the personal payment details of our residents safe from prying eyes and hands? Thank you.
Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure Councillor Sykes will appreciate that to get a detailed response to that question without notice, I will need to consult with officers and get a reply in writing. What I can say is that the council has secure servers, and when we take payment, those details are encrypted to make sure that we can't be, but clearly cyber terrorists will look to circumnavigate the systems on a regular basis, so we keep it under constant review. And when we are aware that there's been a major breach, such as Talk and other government breaches, then we do learn from that the way other agencies do when taking payments. But as I say, we'll get a more detailed response in writing.
Thank you. Councillor Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank the leader for his answer. Look forward to the detailed reply. My second question concerns another clear and present danger to a plan that has enjoyed cross-party support in this chamber, namely the proposal to generate our own green energy through Generation Oldham project. The leader may be aware that the new Conservative government has recently proposed changes that will make it difficult, if not impossible, to continue to develop community-owned renewable energy schemes. When the Liberal Democrats controlled the Department of Energy and Climate Change, whilst in the coalition, a favourable regime was put in place to provide a generous subsidy for the payment of a feed-in tariff fit to community energy groups. As a result, more than 5,500 community energy projects were established over the lifetime of the last government, making a major contribution to the country's energy needs without creating a carbon footprint. The new government intends to unravel this regime by cutting the feed-in tariffs by up to 90% in January 2016, just a couple of months off. Under their proposals, that's the new government's, the payments to a roof-mounted solar schemes will reduce from just under 12.5 pence per kilowatt hour to just over 1.6 pence per kilowatt hour for every hour of electricity they produce. I've recently responded, as I'm sure many others have, to a consultation the government's held on this, but I doubt whether they will listen or are in listening mode, and I think these changes will go ahead. Given that this council's Generation Oldham proposals are based on a generation by roof-mounted solar panels of 1 megawatt of electricity, then the leader please tell me whether these proposals would make the scheme unviable and whether any solar panels can be installed before January to enable us to claim the existing subsidy and salvage what we can from the Conservatives inspired to trade crash and butchering on this initiative. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll know that for a number of years now, the Generation Oldham project has been in development. I think we got to the stage where we were happy with the way forward. We agreed with the report. Clearly, that was based on a world of some element of subsidy coming back to make that financially viable. You know that the capital investment required to actually install this equipment is fairly substantial still. It's coming down with new technology, but still fairly substantial. But actually that has to be repaid somehow, and the repayment will go through the subsidy that would mean the council or community organisations will get a benefit from that. I think Oldham has got a good track record in this. Of course, the Southern Community Hydro scheme is now in place. People have bought shares in that. The council, of course, supported that. The Generation Oldham scheme was about making that available for everybody in Oldham to take part in renewables in one way or the other. There's no doubt now that the government, if you compare their approach to housing, their approach to green energy, to social housing, the commonality is they don't believe in either. They don't believe in social housing, they don't believe in green energy, but they try to present it to the public as though it's a giveaway cashback. So when they put the 1% for rents, used to pay for renewables that over the long period would have meant that energy would have been cheaper for them. But they present it as a giveaway, cashback. So it's going to be very, very difficult. I can't stand here with any confidence and say that Generation Oldham will be delivered on a scale that our ambition would have wanted, but I can say that our determination to see something through the end of it is still there. I'll get Councillor Jabbar to maybe circulate an updated note on Generation Oldham as a result of the change in subsidy.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. A leader of a minority opposition has the opportunity to ask a question. Is there a question to be asked? Councillor Sheldon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is good news that the railway line from Manchester Victoria to Huddersfield is going to see the electrification of soon. We thought this was going to be stopped, but it seems like it's going ahead now. The impact and the problem I'm going to raise now is that of Greenfield Railway Station. In fact, this impact will be the closure of the A62, the main road from Oldham through Saddleworth over to Huddersfield. This is 635, I'm sorry, I've got the wrong road there. But it could be closed for up to 6 months. And this is going to have serious repercussions to not only residents but many businesses. And there are no real close alternative diversion routes, in that traffic will have to go either through Mossley or up Huddersfield Road and through Delft to get sort of from Oldham to Upper Mill. So what I would like to ask is, can all our borough councillors, the Saddleworth ones, be brought on board very soon to discuss this major problem, in the fact that we could have ideas in place well before the railway come along with the electric lines, that we've got a new road set up already to be dropped in place. This will alleviate the road being closed for 6 months, and it's just to get all the councillors working on this sooner than later. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope you appreciate, Mr. Mayor, that the detail of that we need to follow in writing. There's no pre-warning of the question being asked. I will say, though, just what Mark down, there was a marked difference in quality of question between that of council sites, raising really big substantial issues that do affect people in Oldham, versus what are effectively ward issues that have been dealt with in a different place. I don't deny at all that a road closure at that scale and that location isn't an issue, but it is quite telling that at the moment, with the questions that have been allocated to the Conservative group, it doesn't appear that those questions have any relevance outside of Saddleworth. And I do think there's a real demand there to travel a bit, to move a bit outside London, to maybe consider issues that affect a wider population. And if there are ward issues that do need addressing, to raise that need of the ward question time that everyone has access to, or of course the taker regularly offers a corridor conversation, usually yields these issues much quicker.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. May I remind members that full council agreed that following the leaders' allocated questions will be taken in an order which reflects the political balance of the council. I have advance notice of questions. I call on Councillor Roberts to ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the relevant Cabinet member tell us what the potential impact would be in Oldham of the Conservative government's proposed housing policies in extending the right to buy to housing association tenants and forcing councils to sell off higher value properties?
Councillor Hibbert to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Roberts for asking to know the potential problems and difficulties. I'll start by telling you the existing ones because they're quite substantial. As members will know, right to buy has already had a major impact on the supply of family housing for social rent in the borough. And I can see my colleague Councillor McCann nodding in agreement. In the last 5 years alone, 179 former council-owned tenants have exercised the right to buy, with 109 of these in the last 2 years. This stemmed from the government's policy of increasing the level of right-to-buy discounts. Whilst whilst extending the right to buy to housing associations tenant is presented by the government as a means to open access to home ownership, it causes a number of problems in terms of impact on individuals. Many people don't always appreciate the financial challenges in terms of maintaining and managing the homes, and we see this, for example, on Crossley Estate, where properties that were still within the housing association's management were renovated and a lot of work done and improvements, both internal and external. We had a great deal of difficulty persuading those who'd exercised the right to buy to participate because, of course, they simply couldn't afford it. As a council, we would not support anything which encourages people into debt and puts them at risk of repossession. When many right-to-buy properties are subsequently sold on, our experience is that they often end up in the private rented sector, which can lead to a lack of maintenance and a range of neighbourhood management problems. I know there are several people in this council chamber who own properties, and I wouldn't for 1 minute suggest that every private landlord is irresponsible or a rogue, but too many of them are, Mr. Mayor. Too many of them are. And I don't mean too many of the people in this room. But I wouldn't know because I'm not one of the tenants. Our right to buy also impacts greatly on the supply of affordable family homes for rent across the borough. It's clear from recent years that the cost of replacing the homes lost on the right to buy has never, ever been met by the government. This proposal will put further pressure on Oldham's Housing Association's finances. Former council tenants who are housed by First Choice Homes in their 12,000 properties already have what is called preserved right to buy. So these new changes will affect housing association tenants in around a further 10,000 other homes across the borough. In relation to the selling of high-value council homes to fund replacements, I don't believe the government has thought through the implications of this. The proposal appears part of a drive to push home ownership at the expense of councils and those who need affordable homes for rent. This could in theory impact on around 300 new build family council homes, which were recently built through the Gateways to Oldham scheme. None of these meet the suggested definition of high value, however. The government may set a target for the council to sell properties. We are asking the government to exempt the sale of recently built homes as a cost of replacing them wouldn't be viable. This policy of selling high value properties might work in the southeast of England, Mr. Mayor, where people can sell them for bloated prices, well in excess of the cost of their replacement and rebuild. That doesn't apply in places like towns like Oldham and in the north of England and probably north of Milton Keynes. The policy is faulty, the policy is dangerous, the policy threatens the quality of life for many people, not only in Oldham but across the north of England. It's a disgrace what they're planning, and we should be doing everything possible. And I know the housing associations agree with what we're saying because they're pushing this. Everything possible to fight this crazy, ill-thought-out, southern-centric, eccentric policy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hibbert. I call on Councillor Hack to ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oldham is rightly proud of the record of Oldham Sixth Form College, but recent research by the Sixth Form College Association has painted a worrying picture about the future. Can the relevant club member comment on what is different for Oldham? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call on Councillor Akhtar to respond, please?
Councillor Hack, thank you for the question. Sixth Form College Association published its 2015 funding impact survey report recently, outlining a number of significant funding pressures on sixth form colleges right across England. The report comments that the 93 sixth form colleges in England are an education success story. They outperform school and academy sixth forms while educating more disadvantaged students who are receiving less funding. However, this year's funding impact survey shows that the sector has reached a point where it cannot absorb any further reductions. The sixth form college sector as a whole has faced a number of funding cuts over the last few years, and 16 to 18 funding is not protected by the government. Couple this with the fact that colleges have to pay VAT while schools and academies do not. And the scale of the funding position faced by the sector is clear. Oldham Sixth Form College has faced and continues to face these challenges, but remains very strong, having handled the cuts effectively over the last few years, while sustaining strong outcomes, including AS level results this summer, which placed the college in the top 10% nationally in terms of progress made against expected outcomes. As a result of carefully managed changes year on year, the college continues to have an outstanding rating in terms of financial health. This is not to say the future will not be challenging, given the lack of protection and potential for further cuts, but I believe we can continue to have confidence in the college's current and future position. By the way, Mr. Mayor, I am a governor at Sixth Form College, but I don't think I need to declare an interest to answer this question.
Thank you, Councillor Acton. If there was a need, you've declared it now. I call on Councillor Malik to ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There has been lots of news about the success of adoption and fostering service in Oldham. Can the Cabinet Member for Social Care and Safeguarding bring us up to date on recent developments? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Malik. Can I call on Councillor Harrison to respond, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Malik, for the question. Yes, I'm very pleased to give an update on this service. In the recent SIF inspection, it was noted that both our adoption and fostering services were rated good and had shown significant improvement. Within fostering, we have created more capacity with the mainstream carers to meet increased demand for the service, but also to fulfil the needs of the stay put legislation, where children, or young people I should say, have the option of staying on longer with foster parents. We've also developed our foster care offer to deal with more complex cases, and especially those young people who need therapeutic support. And we've concentrated on recruiting carers for teenagers to enable us to reduce the number of residential places and to improve outcomes for these young people at a crucial stage of their lives. A fairly recent development is the setting up of a regional, it's the West Pennine Regional Adoption Agency, which is part of a nationwide initiative to bring authorities together to share expertise and other important things. And Oldham were part of a very successful bid. And it's recently been agreed, and it will, we're confident that it will lead to more timely and better matches for our children across the region in the adoption process. There's also a joint adoption panel with Rochdale that's set up in October. This has a new independent chair and meets every 2 weeks. So this again should help improve timeliness of adopter approvals and matching children with prospective adoptive families. The Adoption Support Fund has been fully operational since May 15th. This is to provide therapeutic support for families who may need this kind of support after an adoption order. And Oldham have made a successful application to fund the therapeutic support for 6 adoptive families, and there are more on the way. And all eligible families have been advised of this fund. We've had government help with increasing fees for helping to find places for hard-to-place children and young people, such as the older ones, sibling groups, children from BME backgrounds, and those with special needs. So overall, the performance in this service is to be, the people who produce this are to be congratulated, and I hope that answers Councillor Hatt's question. Sorry, Councillor Mullen's question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I call on Councillor Harkness to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Many children from households in Borough come to school, many of the children come to school hungry. It's well known that a hungry child will have great difficulty concentrating in lessons, and so their learning will suffer. Such children would benefit enormously from having access on arrival to school to a breakfast club, providing nutritious food, free or for not enough some. The Liberal Democrat group has recently conducted surveys of schools to identify which run breakfast clubs. This did reveal some additional clubs that we were not already recorded in the council's database, and I'll be very happy to share this the questions set and the data received with the cabinet member. However, many schools did not respond to the survey, so the picture is far from complete. Can I therefore ask the cabinet member if he will be willing to commission an official council survey of schools so we have a greater understanding of the availability of provision at this time? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkness. And before I call on Councillor Akhtar to respond, can I throw my weight behind this, because it also significantly reduces the stress of parents in the morning if they don't have to prepare breakfast for the children. Councillor Akhtar.
The short answer to that, Mr. Mayor, is yes. I don't want to take up more time for the council.
Thank you, Councillor Akhtar. I call on Councillor Fielding to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The introduction of individual electoral registration is predicted to lead to the loss of thousands of eligible voters from electoral registers. What is the council doing to raise awareness of this change and ensure that nobody in Oldham loses their right to vote? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. I call on Councillor Hack to answer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Fielding for this question. Additional staff resources only from central government are being used to concentrate on the task of reducing the unconfirmed or red letters, together with colleagues from canvassers and the neighbourhood teams, making personal weekend visits to non-responding properties in the lowest responding areas. Work is still ongoing in these areas. These letters have had 2 letters sent out separately to them and 1 hand-delivered by canvassers requesting a response on top of the usual canvass activities. To date, every household has had 2 household inquiry followed by a reminder and second reminder when necessary. The personal canvass is underway and will run until mid-November. The communication plan has used Twitter, Facebook messaging, which has been ongoing throughout the canvass, and extra push has gone out on Facebook recently. Staff have been encouraged through team briefs and posters throughout the workplace. Personal calls have been made to build up better relationship with nursing homes and their managers. Licensing of private landlord has been used to write out to them requesting information about tenants and movements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hack. I call on Councillor Shuttleworth to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An article in the Times on the 19th of October is a comment from Oliver Colville MP, the chairman of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on the private rented sector, and I quote, "The government needs to explain why so much taxpayers' money is going to rob landlords without proper accountability. He called for an action to end the blight of filthy and dangerous accommodation. May I therefore ask the relevant cabinet member to advise 1. the current situation in relation to the selective licensing scheme, 2. how many private landlords have indicated their willingness to join the scheme, 3. the number of known private landlords in the borough, and 4. how many private landlords, if any, have been prosecuted for providing unfit homes during the last 5 years." Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shuttleworth. I call on Councillor Hibbert to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Shuttleworth. I also read that article in the Times on October and noted the comments of the chairman of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on the private rented sector. Up to date, the team have received 596 applications for a licence from the 5 neighbourhoods that are currently designated. Of these applications, 67 properties have now been licensed after providing the relevant documentation and complying with the conditions, with another 104 to be issued with a licence by the end of November this month. Officers are currently processing the details of 30 private landlords who have failed to apply for a licence from the initial neighbourhood of St Mary's, and these details will be processed with the intention to prosecute. Question 2. Across the 5 neighbourhoods that are designated, the Council has received 596 applications. Further applications are expected as a number of landlords are waiting for the approval of the instalment option, which is now in place. That is the payment in 2 stages of the licence fee which is less than £500 for 5 years. The figure is unknown, but what we can say is that within the neighbourhoods covered by selective licensing, 38% of housing stock is privately rented. It is also known from research that over 80% of landlords with properties in the borough only own one property. 5 landlords have been prosecuted by the team over the last 5 years. In addition to these prosecutions, officers have also served legal notice on landlords to emergency close 15 privately rented properties due to their condition, and also executed 33 warrants issued by the magistrates' courts to ensure standards are maintained. We're now, Mr. Mayor, at the easy stage, if you like, of finding landlords, and to finding landlords. The difficulty is going to come with the landlords who are not registered. The difficulty is going to come with the landlords who are taking cash in hand payments. The difficulty is going to come with tenants who are terrified of saying or reporting anything about their particular landlord for fear of eviction. One private landlord said to me one time, he said, "I do not need advice on how to deal with a troublesome tenant. I will simply go down, put all their property on the pavement and change the lock." Now, if that is the standard of landlord that we're determined to protect people in Oldham against, I'm prepared to fight this one and really go as far as we actually need in order to achieve what we want. And that is a good, responsible, safe, secure, healthy properties in Oldham for people to live in with no fear of insecurity for the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Councillor Inwood. I call on Councillor Gary to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apprenticeships are an excellent route into skilled employment for young children. Can the relevant cabinet member advise how many people have been supported into apprenticeships by the Get Oldham Working Scheme? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gary. I call on Councillor Akhtar to respond.
Councillor Gary, thank you for the question. The Get Oldham Working campaign has supported 280 citizens into apprenticeships across a wide range of areas and increasingly into higher and advanced levels. We achieved a 90% achievement rate, which is exceptional, and 86% progress directly into employment at point of leaving the scheme. The Council has increased its commitment to apprenticeships from 10 a year to over 50 a year, and it's confident it will be exceeding the enrolment apprenticeship rate target. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Akhtar. We have time for one more question. I call on Councillor Williamson to ask the question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Children that are looked after by the local authority are required to leave their accommodation if they reside in a children's home when they reach the age of 18. Yet they can remain in situ within a foster care placement until they become 21. Given that the local authority retains a duty of care to children that are looked after until they become 21, please can the Cabinet Member outline for me what ongoing support is currently provided by the Council once they become an adult and leave a children's home? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Harrison to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. It's a very good question. And in response to the question, young people can remain in foster care post-18 in the initiative of Stone Court that I've already referred to, and this is reviewed every 6 months to discuss if it's still the appropriate route for the person until the age of 21. However, as usual, Oldham goes the extra mile, and children's homes are regulated by statutory guidance that doesn't allow an extension. In Oldham, we're unique and provide 2 high-quality semi-independent units. Most children leave residential care in Oldham and move to a semi-independent unit, and they can stay there until they're 21. These are staffed 24 hours a day and allow young people to develop the skills, independence and maturity, and to take on another step forward towards independence and to their own tenancy in the future. So they're not just kicked out at 18, there is ongoing support available. These provide a safety net and build relationships with the workers to then continue when they move on further. So there's no sudden cut-off point. Following this period, we have 13 taster flats for 18-plus-year-olds that have been in care, develop the skills in semi-independence, but still need a period of support. These are self-contained flat where staff from the service visit them on a nightly basis in order to provide and offer support. This provides an alternative or a complement to young people's development to independence, whilst again it prompts confidence. There's a safety net that parents would provide. So this is Oldham being good corporate parents ongoing. The social work in the service supports the young people who are care leavers until 21 years and post 21 until 25 if they are in higher education. So it's a little bit more. If they're in higher education, apprenticeship or traineeship. So again, what a good parent would do. It's over a period of time, advice, support and guidance. Young people can get encouraged to aspire, to succeed, to attend university. One of our care leavers has gone to, whether it's Oxford or Cambridge, Cambridge this year, which is a fantastic achievement. This long-term support will be there to create individual autonomy and increase independence and resilience in dealing with life situations.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Item 12, questions and observations on Cabinet minutes. I call on Councillor McMahon to move and Councillor Stretton to second that Council notes the minutes of the Cabinet as circulated.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do any members of the Council who are not Cabinet members have a question on the minutes? Councillor McCann.
Mr. Mayor, it's page 45, Cabinet of the 21st of September 1910, which is the Coliseum and Heritage Centre. I accept that commercial sensitivity about this or these schemes with changes to funding and the bids and the contractors and partners will be a factor in the reply. That's accepted. But could the appropriate Cabinet member advise regarding any major revisions or changes that are required and confirm that the financial controls will remain at a high and strict level as they have done with other schemes, and that risk evaluations will remain as they seem to have done so far, again at a high professional level. I accept this may be a long-term project, but further guidance would be helpful given the number of changes that seem to be happening. Thank you.
Can I call on Councillor McMahon to respond, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I thank Councillor McCann for his question? The very quick answer is there's no material change to the financial model in this. The numbers have moved around. That's partly because we've had a significant third-party donation that has been taken into account. So the report by and large was about scheduling because the funding required that we move quickly to get on with the Heritage Centre. And that meant that the fundraising period for the Coliseum Theatre element just wouldn't be sufficient for them to raise the funding that was required because we had to move too quickly to get the Heritage Centre done. So what we agreed to do was basically to separate out the project into a number of phases. The first phase was to crack on and get the Heritage Centre built with the money that's been gifted, to allow more time to fundraise, to allow the theatre to be built. And then of course the other elements around Heritage Lottery, the Arts Council, etc. We also used those as an opportunity to look at the wider town centre because we were nervous that we were going to a situation similar to the town hall room, which was a building that was vacated without a real use for the future. We've seen that with the right-hand side of the Lyceum building, where the youth centre moved out with no viable alternative to go into there. That's now deteriorated very quickly. And we're fearful if we were to relocate the museum service and the lifelong learning service away from the buildings that currently occupy into the new Heritage Centre, So we agreed with Heritage England, we agreed with the Arts Council and Heritage Lottery that we would widen the project to include the heritage assets across the rest of the town centre. So it includes your post office, it includes the museum, it includes the Lyceum building, and we're now just about to get costs back to deal with the health and safety works of the Lyceum buildings, so the electrical works, the heating systems, the roof repairs, etc. What we want to do is to work with private building owners, we want to work with buildings that are in our ownership to make sure that we've got a viable use going forward. I think we're at a very exciting time now in Oldham where the council's confidence to invest in flagship schemes like the Old Town Hall, like Princess Gate and the Heritage Centre, for instance, have now meant that there are a number of private sector investors who want to invest in Oldham. We will be bringing forward plans very soon that will deal with the Conservative Club of the Controlling Officers, where we've now got an end use identified for that, will secure that building, actually with very little council investment. So if we can do more of that, where we're working with the private sector, working with investors from outside the council, I think it will mean that the heritage buildings that we do respect will have a long-term and viable future. It's simply not an option for us to find another council use when the council budget's being reduced so significantly. What we have to do, and there's an agreement across parties to do this for the mayor position, is where matters are commercially confidential, we're more than happy on a confidential basis to meet privately and just go through exactly what that means in a private setting. And clearly those numbers aren't for the public domain just yet, but as I say, if you want us to arrange a private briefing, we can do that.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. Councillor Blythe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Same minute, same page right for Oldham Coliseum. It is exciting times, I think, you know, the theatre to move. But there's nothing in this. What's going to happen to the old theatre? What are we going to do with it, that building? Because that will become a blight then, it will become a cost to the county, or whatever. It's what we do with that building, the future of that building. There's nothing in, and I haven't heard anything about the future of the old Coliseum, if you like. And historically, it's the art of the theatre in Oldham. That's where it's always been. It grew up there. You know, half the stars on TV have performed there. And it's what we do with it. How do we keep the heritage of that area at the top of the town and still let people know that that was where it was? I mean, we can do the blue plaque and all that, but what do we do with the building? And the other one is, it was the other buildings at the bottom, and I think you started to explain it now, and that's because what I was fearful of, we were going to buy the Principality building and the Masonic Hall. The Masonic Hall has been empty at least 10 years and probably 12, and it's probably in a similar state to the Old Town Hall, and it's going to cost a lot of money, you know, to do up. And if we can't, as a council, find that money, we better find it from elsewhere. You've already alluded to that, but it's the main question is what will happen to the old Coliseum?
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor McMahon?
Okay, I think very quickly, I don't want to dive into the question too much, but I mean, what we're trying to do in this report is not to focus on one building at the cost of the rest. What we're trying to do is to get a single plan for the whole of the town centre and the conservation area in the town centre to make sure we have a joint plan with Heritage England, Heritage Lottery, the Arts Council and other funders to have a long-term plan going forward. If you walk down Union Street, you'll see that it's a Principality building, a magnificent building that's got trees growing outside of it and no use. You go then to the Lyceum that's half empty with significant costs of repair required. You've got the post office and the museum that they vacated when they moved into a gallery that, by the way, is completely empty. Across the road to the Masonic Hall, by the way, is empty. The trees growing out of it. So further down to the Conservative Club, again a brown building with trees growing out of it, and again there's nobody using it. To the old bank with the same issue. So we've got to have a plan that includes the whole of the town centre, and by working with people who know their stuff on heritage, we can make sure that we don't make mistakes of the past where we demolish the heritage because it's gone too further. It's part of the regeneration in the future. I think the Coliseum Theatre is different because, really, if the Old Town Hall works as a cinema and a restaurant and a new public square, if the Heritage Centre and the new Coliseum works and there's a hotel in the town centre, that brings significant amount of footfall. And what we see actually, the number of restaurants that are opening now in the town centre is increasing as well. It could well be that there's another commercial use for the Coliseum Theatre that remains as a venue. So we're looking at that. We haven't got plans in place yet for it, to form part of the wider work. But again, when those plans are being developed and we've got a bit more detail, if they're not at the point where they can be in the public domain, we'll people simply having to sit down on a private basis and share them. And as soon as they are ready to be shared, we'll share them.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. Do any members of the Council who are not Cabinet members have observations on the minutes? No, thank you. We move on to item 13, Notice of Administration Business. And I hope members have got one eye on the clock as well, because the time is ticking and we may not have the fully allocated time to debate the whole of the agenda in front of us. So if you can just be considerate while we're debating these motions, please. Motion 1, I call on Councillor Moores to move and Councillor Roberts to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to keep this short. I will start with the Lib Dems mantra, that's Save Shaw Market. Well, that is, I'm sure, what we all want to do. Shaw Market was a baby market. I don't think even the Lib Dems could deny that. So what should we do? Well, let's try something new. And I made that rhyme, by the way. We moved the market on a trial basis to Market Street. Yes, Market Street. Where else would you have a market? And what happens? It's a success. And how do we know that? Council officers carried out an evaluation, a survey involving 673 members of the public at various locations in Shaw. 474 of them had used Shaw markets in the previous 12 months. And 527 said they had used the market since its relocation. 68% of those thought that a permanent move to Market Street would have a positive impact on the market, and 59% said they preferred the new location. So what about the impact on the market and other local businesses? Well, all traders from the original market site were given priority to move to the on-street location. One declined to move and one tried for 1 week. End result, we now have 14 regular stallholders booked on the current Market Street layout and 3 casual traders with a waiting list of 7. And 25% of the members of the public questioned said they had used local shops more since the move. So lots of facts and figures that prove the trial was a success. But did the Lib Dems give it a go? No. What did they do? They started a petition to save Shaw Market. And the wording of the petition is quite emotive, and I will quote it. Oldham Labour want to wreck our market. Bring back shoppers to our town. We are opposed to closing Market Street to traffic every week, bringing traffic chaos to Shaw and Crompton. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint them, but it didn't bring traffic chaos. I am sure the elected members for Shaw already know the facts, but I will remind them. The transport managers from both distribution centres located in the area have confirmed their deliveries have not been affected by the trial. The fire brigade have not had any reported problems. TFGM in First Manchester have not reported any problems from a bus operational point of view. Whilst we don't claim to have saved Shaw Market, I am absolutely convinced that this is the right move, and we will continue to work with local businesses, market traders and the local community to maintain a market provision in Shaw. And I will just finish with a couple of quotes from a market trader. I just want you to be aware that the difference moving in the markets has made to trade. It is phenomenal. The amount of new customers we're seeing is amazing. One of the main things that people are commenting on is the difference in the atmosphere and how much of a community it feels it is brought to Shaw. I move the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moores. I call on Councillor Roberts to second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to be able to second this motion as it demonstrates the success of the trial we've had in moving the market. Just want to talk briefly about why street markets are important. There's been a lot of research about this carried out nationally, and it's not just about that local people have somewhere to go and shop. It's also about the contribution markets make to a unique local environment and the contribution that they make to the wider local economy. So it's important to us that Shaw Market succeeds, so that Shaw continues to succeed as a town centre. We all know that shopping habits are changing. Lots of people buy a lot of stuff online. And that can make it hard for small shopping areas to compete unless they do have something unique to offer. You know, why go somewhere where it's just the same old shop? So again, street markets play a really important role in helping that to continue. And there's been some encouraging evidence come out of this trial in that while a lot of older people have continued to use the market, from the trial, the demographic has widened and more younger people have used the market in the new location. Now clearly that gives a market a future. I know that there continues to be some controversy about this. Clearly that's evidenced by the questions that we heard earlier on this evening. But nonetheless, I think that the evidence which has already been outlined by Councillor Moores is very clear. The stall holders do not want to move back to the old location. And I know, and I've read very carefully all of the evidence that was presented, that some of the local businesses are concerned about the impact this has had. But actually, in the evidence that was returned to the council, the majority of them said that they were happy to support the market continuing, and indeed there were several who wanted the market to be extended in its present location. Clearly, the lesson from this is location, location, location. It doesn't just matter when you buy a house, it also matters where you go to shop and where you put your shopping. The trial has been a success. The council is committed, though, to continue to work with local businesses, local residents and the stall holders to make sure that any continuing problems that people bring to us are dealt with. We are, as a council, prepared to continue to invest in Shaw and in Shaw Market to make it a success in the long term. Some of the comments on the feedback from people I thought was really encouraging. Talking about making the street more lively and generating a nice community spirit. Again, I think is where I kind of started in this. Some of the wider things that a market can bring are really important to a local community. I know that this is the case indeed from the very successful market that continues in Royton and in the precinct, again on Thursdays, which is a thriving place that brings lots and lots of people to shop in Royton, and there's a really nice atmosphere in Royton and in all of the local shops when that market takes place. So I'm very happy to support this motion, and I hope that it underlines the importance that the revitalised market can play in the future of Shaw and the council's commitment to the whole of the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. There's been an amendment proposed for this motion. I call on Councillor Gloucester to move and Councillor Sykes to second the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I rise to propose an amendment to the motion as set out in your papers. Since the 27th of August this year, the market was moved on a trial basis onto Market Street from its historic market ground off West Main Shore. Several trial locations were proposed with Market Street being settled upon, despite the views and wishes of the local councillors. Now, Shaw councillors were against this move from day one, because, as local residents, and we're all local residents, we felt that in order for the market to remain viable in the long term, and not just during the trials held in summer months, with warmer weather, good daylight hours, the market needed to return on the market ground, but with site improvements and good marketing to promote the market to public and traders alike. We described this as the stay put position. However, the administration chose not to even put this suggestion on the table to gauge public opinion, and went ahead with a consultation that did not include this option. How can a valid consultation not contain the option to remain? Why did the market need to move? Why was there a need for the market to move at all? From the consultation as it stands, we simply do not know the answer to this question, a question we asked to be included from day one to no avail. Needless to say, the new market, which simply consists of 14 stalls at my last count, which was last Thursday, placed on an unusually busy thoroughfare, announced by signs and cones at each end of the road blocking traffic off, has gone ahead. The site has no electricity, it's sporadic in-store siting due to objections from some traders, and now offers a diminished retail mix. Closing Market Street off is not a new idea. It was trialled about 20 years ago to uproar from the traders, and the trial was scrapped after 3 months due to loss of trade to the shopkeepers, traffic congestion around the site, and the impact particularly on bus users who were unable to depend on the reliable bus service due to delays and boarding issues, as well as increased congestion every time a bus did stop on the narrow diversion route. It's notable that the final report has made no reference to the issues caused at the start and finish time of the 2 male hardware races. This is simply because the Highways Department in the report, if you actually read it, did not monitor traffic during those periods. And I think if we go back to the public question time, Mrs Farron evidenced this in her public question. While we welcome the success of the trial, we must challenge the legitimacy of it. Once the additional spending ends, the free event, publicity, advertising, questionnaires and additional staff to promote the market are gone, which will probably be tomorrow, what will happen to Shaw Market? It's easy to get a good survey. I'm pretty certain if you went to Oldham Athletic and stood at the end of the shaggy end on the Saturday and said, use Shaw Athletics, people would agree with you. No, it's not, it's around the road. So I'm glad to see you go Oldham as well. Anyway, local councils will of course continue to support the market traders, the permanent retail traders and of course public opinion in order to keep the market viable. But regret that we have ended up at this situation when if we'd been listened to in the first place, this could and would have been avoided. It's true what Councillor Roberts said. You know, the survey is more positive than negative, but it's a 60-40 split. We're pretty happy that if the survey had been conducted properly, then it'd be a different outcome. So therefore, I commend this amendment to you in order to reflect these issues of concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sykes, second.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Very briefly to echo the sentiments by my colleague from Councillor Gloucester. Just one thing, I'm glad the two members that have proposed the motion have actually talked about putting the market on Market Street. Just need the council officers to get that down instead of putting signs up that keep saying High Street, because High Street's the street next to Market Street for sure, and it just gives out the wrong sign. The other issues we've talked about in terms of speaking to the amendment, you talked about Transport for Greater Manchester not aware of any significant issues. Well, I am, in terms of bus users. Now, if they haven't complained, or those complaints haven't filtered through from those bus users, what I've personally experienced of people who have missed buses, didn't know, have lost them, bus drivers, shall we say, not being very complimentary about the diversion route, or very sympathetic to pensioners and others who are less mobile in terms of getting on and off buses. So there have been some issues, as we've said, but the fundamental issue in all this is this should be something where we're standing here, hopefully all as one, is right from the start of this, there was 3 potential locations. This only came about due to some representations we made 2 or 3 years ago, both about the market and about the antisocial behaviour, 2 different issues that could be addressed in a similar way. And we went through the process, through the democratic process, through resolutions of the DE, through meetings with cabinet members, and always wanted there to be 3 options in the consultation. All the way through that process, the option of staying where it is, opening out the market ground, putting collapsible stalls there as one of the 3 options, or 2 options, was never allowed. And you've got to ask yourself why. Just don't understand the document. Nobody's ever explained it to me. Still haven't explained to it why that wasn't an option. You then have, and we'd be very happy then, to stand here and support that in terms of if people wanted the market to move on to the market street. But it's like my colleague says, pick good weather, pick something that's new that always generates some interest. I don't think I've ever seen as many council officers in my ward at one time over a sustained period about one particular issue. You fell over them when you were near the market, you fell over them when you were near the High Street. You couldn't get away with them even if you nipped into Asda to do your shopping, you got nailed. And you got nailed, shall we say, with somebody seeking to facilitate answers that you'd accuse me of being of liberal democratic nature because they were inclined to give a particular answer, shall we say. And I'm not so sure they'd have passed the Ipsos and Murray in terms of being impartial. So we've got that, and you put resources in and put extra signs. Some of the signs are right, some of the signs aren't. We put free events on, and we wonder why more people turn up. Well, we should all be shocked, shouldn't we? Now the question is when all that disappears, where does it happen? When we get to the dark nights and the bad weather. And that's the long-term solution. But the going back now won't be an option. We'll see. Some of the shops have had a detrimental impact, some haven't. But the fundamental thing for us, and that's what this amendment seeks to do, along with the later amendment as well, is just because some of the larger organisations haven't said, there are a number of people, there are a couple of public questions tonight, accused from people, that there has been some problems with this. And the key thing is, you're right, it is location, 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 and the survey should have been location, stay where you are, location, move to Market Street, location, move to Middle Street car park. We could have had a proper debate, we could have had a proper consultation and explained to people, and we could hand in the answer. That was never the case, it's never been explained. We've got a chance explaining tonight why the state put wasn't an option, and why it shouldn't have been. Thank you. So location, so we'll see if that's explained. So with that, I'd ask you to support the amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sykes. I've got two members who've indicated they want to speak to the amendment. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be as quick as I can because obviously people in the room won't not like what I'm going to say. Benny's never moved, Ashton's never moved, Longside's never moved, and there's other markets very successful and thriving. Right, what do you know about Shawmore? Well, you used to drive a bus through there for years, 181, 182. You've leafleted in the area also, so you know what it's like. It was hard work, by the way, leafleting. So whose idea was this to move the original market into the streets and cause chaos to the residents and the shops and the transport system around it? Whose idea was it? Was it the same person that idea that the shop at the top there? Was it the same person that gave advice? I don't know. That's closing down any road. Right, here we are. White van man turns up once a week. 124,000 has been spent on him to stay there. Instead of spending it up there on the original market that could have been successful, interfering. Warren, right. Jim says he listens to the silent majority. I don't. I listen to the people, and they were there with a big petition. 300 odd people signed it, and the Labour Party went through it meticulously to make sure they lived in the area. And also we had people in the shops didn't want it. I'm supporting the amendment because the Labour Party here are going to cause chaos in Shaw as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. Councillor Blythe, can you switch your mic on, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will stand to support the amendment. Yes, trial period has ended. It's been granted permission. It's been granted a licence, but it's skewed. The trial period, it skewed the result because the trial period had an unprecedented phenomenon, and that was for 9 weeks it was dry and sunny every Thursday. That has never happened in the history of Shaw Market in the last 100 years. So you were very lucky. You were very lucky and you got looked out on you.
Can we have one meeting, please?
I tell you what, if you'd gone last Thursday morning, and I did when it was pouring down, and you looked up Market Street, it was a ghost street. There was nothing happening on Market Street. There were no vehicles, there were people stood there under the stalls, there was nobody out buying, because people don't go to trade, and we know that. You wouldn't have had 560 people, officers to fill in the very well-worded document and help them fill it in rather than let them fill it in themselves. They weren't allowed to fill it in themselves, they were coached into filling it in. So you've had the trial, you've got your results, but what you haven't said is what's going to happen when it's windy? Because the traders have been told if it's too windy, their pop-up stalls don't go up because of health and safety factors. So there'll be no market, they won't be pre-warned, they'll turn up Thursday morning, they'll say, too windy, we're not putting the stalls up today, go away. So that means they lose a day's earning. I tell you what they'll do, they'll go to the next nearest market that's all a more permanent one. They've already told me where it is, it's Harper Air, because that's the permanent stalls. They don't pop them up. So that's what will happen, the traders. And the other one that to the traders have run by me, you go to double rent. Don't know if it's true or not, but they think you're going to double the rent. And if that happens, they're off. But for the trial period, it's on a reduced rent. So let's get some facts out there. Is it reduced rent for the trial period? Because no, there's that many rumours going around. They're told it's going to double. They're told that if it's too windy, they can't put them up. So there'll be no market. How many times in Shaw do you get windy down Market Street? Not many of you stood on Market Street in Shaw on a normal Thursday morning. It gets really windy because it's like a wind tunnel. That's how Market Street's developed. You get buildings either side, you get the wind come down off the moor, up the valley, bang, and it's hit Shaw. So if those stalls can't go up in a windy day, we'll have more non-market days than we'll have market days in the winter. So that's where I stand to support the amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Blythe. I have two indications, but I've only got time for one speaker, providing it very brief. Councillor Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on the weather, when it rains, it's wondering where the people are. They went in the shops in that street to spend a couple of bob to go in the cafe to have a drink. If it's out on a car park, they're going to go home. And the other thing is, when we heard evidence, we were told the sharp Crompton Council wanted the permanent stalls taken away because it was anti-social behaviour. Okay, so for some time I've detected, this is sad, Mr. Mayor, detected some of the councillors in Shaw, Crompton seem to attack everything that's put before them. And Mr. Mayor, this leads to the resident area of the area losing out on a number of projects. The market is one of them. If it doesn't survive, if it doesn't move, and more traders are pulling out, they'll lose the market. It's a history of it. We had the Health and Wellbeing Centre when the Labour government at the time was offering a new health and wellbeing centre, one for right and one for short. They dillied and dallied, and then the coalition came in to the funding line. They lost out on that, arguing amongst themselves. The replacement pool, they were in power for 3 years to have a new pool. And just imagine this. If you want to say, right, let's move the market somewhere decent where it's going to flourish and keep going, you wouldn't have a space there where you could say, oh, we'll have a new pool there. But when you were asked for sites for the pool, it was like, knock Crompton pool down and build it down. That wasn't an option because we wanted to keep the thing going. And then we found one on a housing estate somewhere. Okay, so all you do, you attack Labour for your failings. The market petition, then it was got a red shop. Labour's got a red shop market. One thing you did do was build Asda. But Asda on the edge of Shaw. So anyone comes to Asda, the other shopping and clear off. You've got a massive car park, you've got the Main Street, you've got Market Street, and then you have the market. You gave no thought to keeping people in the Shaw Centre or going to the market. Number of years now, the council leader has offered.
I'm afraid that's all the facts.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Does Councillor Moores wish to reply? You have to be very, very brief. No. Does Councillor Gloucester wish to reply? Very brief.
I certainly do, Mr. Mayor.
Very briefly, Councillor Gloucester.
I'll try and just be brief, and I'll just cover the points of what Bernard said. I've got a great deal of respect for Ashley because I've worked with him for a long time, but health and wellbeing consents in Shaw. Well, my understanding as a Shaw resident, as the councillor for the last 5 or 6 months, is that the health and wellbeing centre were long gone before the coalition was met.
Councillor Gloucester, sorry, can you speak to the amendment?
Yes, I am speaking to the amendment.
Not the health and wellbeing centre.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but I dare to accuse anybody of double standards, particularly
about greatest respect to Bernard, it's shocking rubbish.
Councillor Gloucester, can I ask you to withdraw the final comment, please?
What final comment, sorry? You want to make Bernard recycling rubbish?
Yes.
No, I won't withdraw it.
That's fine. You know you're not the argument.
Right, we're going to go straight to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment? Thank you. All those against? The amendment is lost. Okay, because it's 9:30 now, so effectively all I'm going to ask you to do is move and second the amendment, and we'll go straight to a vote. I call on Councillor Williamson to move and Councillor Murphy to second the amendment. The second amendment, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favour of the second amendment, please show.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just on procedure, can I just check? Is there anybody opposed to the amendment? Because don't you have a speaker for and against?
My apologies. Is there anybody who wishes to speak against this amendment?
The amendment.
I will actually speak against the amendment, but there's no time for me to speak. So I spoke against. Somebody else needs to do that.
So procedurally, Mr. Mayor, if it was not what you said in the brief, with respect, on just you should take a speaker for it and a speaker against it, and we should vote now with it, the guillotine, and that's how we deal with the rest of the business.
My apologies. Because there's a person who wants to speak against the amendment, so I will take one speaker for and one against. Who wishes to speak for the amendment? Councillor Williamson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to move the amendment which deals with the traffic disruption on the days when Shaw Market is on Market Street. Market Street is now closed for the on-street market, leaving buses, local traffic, as the lorries and other deliveries to the variety of shops using Eastway. At the Licensing Committee meeting held conveniently on Monday of this week, members heard from a local resident and a business owner who is suffering with his deliveries and also getting to his property. An area manager who was also in attendance made representations about there being problems with their midday delivery. There are other businesses who made comments about the disruption it is causing. Closing the road disrupts our deliveries. On 2 occasions it's been a problem with our delivery wagon to come down. If this is going to be a regular occurrence, we would not want the market to remain on Market Street. The closure of Market Street will not allow me to load and unload my items for my business, which I need access to at all times. Our postal services are disrupted as hanging garments cannot be carried any distance in adverse weather conditions. Extra volume of traffic is causing inconvenience to drivers and could prove dangerous. The most concerning one was a woman was taken ill and the ambulance could not get near where it happened. And also, somebody had said, we have also had to move our delivery day, which has not been easy. Plus, the numerous amount of people who have commented to me and my colleagues about the gridlock that has occurred on numerous occasions. And talking about comments, loads of businesses have made no comments, so you've taken that as a positive, rather than the real reason, which some of them have spoken to me about, is that they felt forced into signing. Takings have been down for some businesses by £300 on a Thursday and £200 on another business, and other businesses have said that they've seen a drastic reduction in the amount of footfall. I've been driving down Beale Lane, got stopped prior to the mini roundabout near to the 2 distribution centres because a wagon is in front of me, waiting for the trams to go across. In front there is a bus, more cars, a couple of wagons, and then I'm blocked from going down Eastway. How can you say that there revealed no significant queue lengths when approximately an additional third more vehicles are using Eastway on Thursday. That's nearly 200 an hour. The report that went to licensing states that the main concerns were the delays that could be experienced by the distribution centre traffic and the effect this would have on their operations. I understand that the two DCs are important to Shore and Crompton, but also so are the businesses that are on Market Street. No mention of concern for these businesses, or is that the plan, to not listen to what they have to say about the disruption this is all causing to their businesses and the loss of business, as I've already mentioned? Or is it, as one business owner commented, I think the council already have this sorted and really not bothered about any feedback? I would concur. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Rigglesworth.
I just want to speak against the amendment. I think we've already heard that the officers who have undertaken the study have said that it's a success. The road and highways officers have said there are no problems that aren't insurmountable, so therefore I oppose the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Rigglesworth. We move to a vote now. All those in favour of this second amendment, please show. Thank you. Thank you. All those against? The second amendment is lost, so we move back to the substantive motion now, the original motion, sorry. Is there anybody who wishes to speak against the original motion? Okay, we'll go straight to the vote. All those in favour of the original motion? Thank you. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you. Can I ask the mover of the second motion, Councillor Chatterton, would she wish to defer this item, or do you want to...
I'll defer it, please, if that's okay.
Defer it. Thank you very much. So motion 2 is deferred. Motion 3, can I ask Councillor Dearden, does she wish to defer this motion, or does she wish to go straight to a vote?
Yes,
Defer. Thank you. That concludes that item. Item 14, notice of opposition business. Can I ask Councillor Harkness, does he wish to defer his motion, or does he wish to go straight to a vote?
I would like to go to the vote, but I'd like clarification on whether anybody's opposed to the motion.
I will ask that. Is there anybody who's opposed to this motion? Is there anybody who wishes to speak against this motion? No? Okay. So there's nobody who's going to speak against this motion, so you can only move and second. Can I ask Councillor Williamson to second?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Does the Councillor read the motion? All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Motion 2, I call on Councillor Murphy to state whether he wishes to defer this motion or whether he wishes to go straight to a vote.
Move to vote, please, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anybody who wishes to speak against this motion? No? Okay. Is that seconded by Councillor McCann? The motion? Thank you. Move straight to a vote. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Motion 3, I call Councillor Heffernan. Do you wish to move straight to the vote, or do you wish to defer?
Move to the vote.
Is there anybody who wishes to speak against this motion?
And he meant to say he'll accept the amendment.
Okay, we'll deal with the amendment first. Councillor Fielding. Is there anybody who wishes to speak against the amendment?
Yeah.
Sorry. If I can speak on the amendment, Mr. Mayor.
There's no time.
Just one thing.
Do you agree or not?
I will accept the amendment. I think Councillor Fielding is trying to kill me off because of what
Thank you very much. Okay. So, sorry. So, Councillor Heffernan moved the original motion. Can I ask Councillor Turner to second? Okay. So, can I ask Councillor Fielding to move the amendment?
Move, Mr. Mayor.
And can I ask Councillor Rigglesworth to second?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All those in favour of the amendment, please show. Anybody against? Thank you. The amendment is carried. Now we move on to the substantive motion. Please show all those in favour. Sorry, the amended motion. It's been a long day. Thank you. And can I ask all those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Item 15A, again there's no time for question or debate. Can I ask, following agreement of the full council, this section will be split into two. The first part to consider joint authority minutes and the second part to consider partnership minutes. Please note I will ask on the spokesperson that were present at the meeting of the joint authorities to move the minutes as submitted. Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Authority, Councillor Williams.
Move the minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Greater Manchester Waste Disposal Authority, Councillor Price. National Park Authority, Councillor McLaren.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Greater Manchester Combined Authority, Councillor McMahon.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Joint GMCA AG AGMA Executive, Councillor McMahon.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Transport for Greater Manchester, Councillor Hibbert.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, item 15B, minutes of partnerships. I call on the spokesperson of the partnerships to move and note the minutes as submitted. Health and Wellbeing Board, Councillor Stretton.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Unity Partnership, Councillor Dean.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Oldham Leadership Board, Councillor McMahon.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Oldham Care and Support Company, Councillor Johan.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 16, Council Tax Reduction Scheme 2016-2017. I call on Councillor Jabbar to move and Councillor Chadderton to second the report.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry. Is there any opposition? Does anybody wishes to speak against this item? No? Okay. So it's been moved and seconded, so we go straight to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Item 17, Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report. Again, is there anybody who wishes to speak against this report? Okay, so I call on Councillor McLaren to move and Councillor Rigglesworth to second.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favour, please show. All those against? Thank you. Item number 18, I call on Councillor McMahon to move and Councillor Sykes to second the report.
Move, Mr. Mayor. Second, Mr. Mayor.
Does everybody agree? Thank you. Item 19, Welfare Reform, Cost of the Cuts 2015. Is there anybody who wishes to speak against the recommendations? No? Can I call upon Councillor Jabbar to move and Councillor Chadderton to second the report?
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Does Councillor agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Thank you. Item 20, changes to committee membership. I call on Councillor McMahon to move and Councillor Sykes to second the report.
Move, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does anybody wish to speak against this? No? We'll go straight to a vote. All those in favour of the recommendations as detailed within the report, please show. Thank you. That's carried. Final item, updates on actions from Council. I call on Councillor McMahon to move and Councillor Sykes to second the report.
Move, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anybody who wishes to speak against the recommendations? Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Thank you very much. That concludes the business of tonight's meeting. Thank you very much.
All right.